Okay. Welcome everyone to the June 20th meeting of the Amenia Town Board. Thank you all for coming. We'll start with a salute of the flag. Or to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank
God. That was horrible last
Remember
time.
that last week?
Okay, so the emergency exits are the one Charlie just came in, then everyone else came in, and this door here in case of emergency. And Dawn, roll call.
Okay, so good evening. Today being June 20th, call the roll. Supervisor Blackman.
Here.
Council members Winters.
Here.
Rebellard.
Here.
Ham. Here. Ahern. Here.
Okay. We're going to start with public comment tonight, just for a change of pace. If anyone is interested in speaking, you have 3 minutes. Anyone? Oop, Sharon got there first, but you should still introduce yourself.
Sharon Kroger. I live on the back road. I just want to say that so often we talk about what's going wrong or what we're worried about. I just want to say thank you for something good that really happened, and I want everybody to know about it. Dan Brown, who lives up in Smithfield, was able to remember back to 1987, and he was able to make available, locating in our town records, the maps of the septic systems for Beekman Park. So he was able to make it available to the committees that are working on it, and that is just a very recent thing that happened.
I just met with Mr. Brown about half an hour ago.
Yes.
And he provided the original drawings for the concession stand. He had no drawings for the septic.
So he only was able to find half of what you were looking for.
Yes, ma'am, and I planned on speaking to that tonight. Thank you very much.
So then it's half as good as I thought, but I'm glad that we were able to find it and to use normal communications to do it. And I also want to say that whenever these old documents are dug out of the records by whomever knows how to do it, they should be signed out if they're taken out, so we know exactly who's got them when they're absent from the record. In other words, as they move around from one hand to another, there should be a trail of there's a name for that, a signatory, so that we know where they are as they move around. They're originals.
Right, well, so those drawings were never filed with the town. Mr. Brown had them in his personal collection, and he provided them to the town, and we appreciate it very much.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak? Go ahead. Oh. Peter's ahead of you, I guess.
Beat you too. Hi, I'm Pete McCaffrey. I'm a resident of Amenia and also a member of the Recreation Commission. Later in the agenda, there's a resolution to move forward with grants to support the Amenia Green project. I'm here to reiterate the Commission's support to move forward with that type of resolution and later answer any questions that you might have. As a Commission, we believe it's vital for any community like ours to have a center where the community can gather for any number of different reasons. The Amenia Green concept was designed with a little something for everyone, from kids to adults to seniors, and would create that natural pull to the center of town and just create a great first impression of the town itself. We are going to take the advice of the town board and do some additional promotion, not unlike what you're doing with the town garage. Although we have the advantage of leveraging our concert series, which the Recreation Commission is sponsoring later this summer. So for those who attend the concert series, you will also get a chance to hear and see about the Amenia Green concept. Finally, I want to close by saying that we understand that moving forward with this, we have to find a way to do it without putting a burden on the taxpayer. That's exactly why we're so interested in being able to move forward with grants, like the resolution later today where we're asking permission to go forward for grants. So I wanted to provide that for a little context for the resolution later on today. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Judy Moran. I see in this revised agenda that the grant application, approval for the grant application is on the agenda. It was not on all the way through this afternoon because I checked before I came in again. I don't want to get into a discussion of the approval for the application for the grant. I have concerns long-term about what the cost of maintaining the splash park specifically might be, but that we can address that at a later time before things are starting forward. My real concern tonight is that it is very important for the board to make sure that materials relating to the board meeting, the resolutions, the votes that are going to be taken, are available to the public. The Freedom of Information Act says that they should be available at least 24 hours before anything is going to be voted on. This approval for the grant application was not, in fact, available on the agenda until someone walked into the town hall and found it there. And the other thing which was not on is and again, I'm not speaking to whether this is a good thing or not, but the climate action plan, the resolution that's there says that the CAC has submitted a copy of the climate action plan, a copy of which is attached here too and made a part of this. Nothing there. So I think it's very important.
I'm sorry, say that again?
There was nothing attached to it. There was no climate action plan attached to the resolution. So it's important, if you want the public to participate and feel confident that they're actually getting the information they need in order to support or oppose something, that it be there. I mean, I printed out the entire agenda and the resolutions. The resolution's there, the climate action plan is not. And the resolution, I believe, is actually in the not in the right format, but that'll probably get taken care of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Oop, you got someone ahead of you, though. Nope.
Hi, Ken Topolsky, live up on Cascade Mountain Road. This is directed more to everyone who's watching and everyone who's sitting here. I'm a member of the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee. We have our meetings on Tuesday night. I urge everyone to go there. The comprehensive plan is going to guide Amenia in all land use issues, in schooling issues, in housing issues, forward to 2041. The Amenia you want your children to inherit will be written this year. And if you're not there, it's going to be, and this is an update of the 2004 plan. It's not a new plan, but things like Silo Ridge have to be included. We have to correct the demographics. We have to talk about the view sheds, all of that. And if you're not, we're dealing with this and trying to move forward. If you're not there, you're going to have to accept or your children will have to accept a 2041 that might look completely different to the Amenia you envisioned and you were hoping to live in and live out your days in.
Tell us again what date you're talking about.
It's on the town calendar. It is on next Wednesday is the next Tuesday is the next meeting, and every other Tuesday. And if it's not going to be held in this room, it's held upstairs in the planning room. Please, it's so important that your input as stakeholders see what we're doing.
Are copies available to the public?
The comprehensive plan, the 2004 plan, or 2007?
2007, I believe.
2007, sorry. It's a comprehensive plan. And under New York State law, the comprehensive plan has primacy as evidence in certain cases. This was affirmed in the New York State Court of Appeals and in County of Westchester. So please, hope to see you all there.
Okay.
My name is Anna Vecchio. And I would like to speak tonight about cannabis regulation finalization that I see on your agenda. I spoke about this in the past. I disagree that there should be a cannabis store in the area where there are families and children in the local downtown. I'm not understanding why you are setting
Anna,
up...
can you
Yes.
just get closer to the microphone?
Sure, sure. Let me just start over here again. Just give me a second. I'm not understanding why you are setting up regulations for this when it's not needed in the area. You can have businesses and shops and cafes in the downtown area. A cannabis store does not fit in with the downtown area. A cannabis store, excuse me, a cannabis store does not fit in with the projected plan you should have for Amenia. Then again, I do not see a vision or a PowerPoint on the website of downtown area revitalization. There are many other businesses you can put in place before adding a cannabis store in the area. As I have spoken about in the past, you should concentrate on small businesses for the downtown area and setting up recreational activities for the area, not just with safe location. The downtown includes what is right near it to revitalize Lake Amenia and bring recreational activities for everyone, swimming, kayaking, canoeing, and beach area, doggy park as well. If you give the youth these recreational activities to do in the area and families as well, they will have more activities to do, especially the children and teenagers. This will keep them away from doing any types of illegal drugs and alcohol. Not to say that Amenia has the issue. I'm not sure what the statistics are in the area when it comes to drugs and alcohol. The children and teenagers need more recreational activities in the downtown area where they can ride their bike, play ball at the field near Lake Amenia. Then by adding those activities I said about Lake Amenia, this will add even more activities in the spring, summer, fall season, and maybe even the winter season as well. Also adding maybe four-wheeling trails as well in the area. It is a known fact that more activities you have to keep the children and teenagers busy and active with outdoor activities, they will be better off than having less activities. This should be a priority on the list. I do not see it on the agenda. The children and teenagers are our future of Amenia and have to have more recreational activities. Will make an impact on them in a good way. It shows them how to enjoy the outdoors and stay active. It has a positive impact on them as well. It can also show them good values. Families can also enjoy their activities with families as well. Again, I think that setting regulations for a cannabis shop is not something that should be on the agenda. It sounds like you wanted to go through with this.
Anna, just have 30 seconds more, just so you know.
Okay. I'm almost done. I know for a fact it is not something positive that children, teenagers, and families should be seeing in the area. Concentrate on revitalization process in the downtown Amenia Lake Road. This will bring the town to a better place and for families as well. You want to show youth a positive statement, not a negative statement such as a cannabis shop.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Seemingly not. Whoop, seemingly.
Hello, everyone. My name's Gay Parise, and I spoke last week, or 2 weeks ago. I am not against parks for our town, but there are so many priorities to take care of before we add another park when I believe we're not taking care of our existing parks. And I would like to see more activities. Actually, I'd like to see bocce ball in the center of town, or horseshoe pits in Passaic Park. Things that don't cost a whole lot of money for that, maybe some adults would like to do. I would think that would be a fun thing to do, and not have a big investment in something called a splash pad. Friends of mine live in Nyack, and they have a splash pad in Nyack, New York, so you can go down there and you can see it. And it costs a fortune. It's well used, but they have a very big community. They have a lot of kids in that town. And I just think, for the moment, I think we should take a breath and walk around with the Park Rec Commission and identify where things are going, flag things where things are going. I have no idea, looking at that map that's on the town site, where things really, how big things are and where things are going. I think it'd be kind of cool to have a small gazebo in the center of town so people can play instruments and get out of the sun, sure. But an amphitheater, I don't know how big, what you're talking about. I don't know where it's going to really go. And I just think it's silly right now. I think we should concentrate on our existing parks that we have right now and make them better, because they could be better. Beekman Park is 50 acres. We own that, 50 acres, and we use so little of it, and you can't even see it from the road. It looks like a dirt driveway with some poles on the road. It's terrible. It's terrible. No, I mean, thank you. No more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Hi everyone, I'm Josh from Wassaic, and I'd like to offer a comment on the town green. And I know that a lot of work has gone into it, Paul and Nicole and everyone else on the Parks Commission, so thank you guys. It's not easy. I think it has a lot of great ideas, but I do think it's not right yet, and I do think it should be modified before ultimately moving forward in two ways. One small one, I apologize if any of my information is out of date, but my understanding is we want to remove a tree and some grass from the front of Town Hall to make more parking so that seniors can park closer to the building for programming. And I understand the project's very expensive. Seems to me we could put a sign in front of some of the parking spots that say seniors only and see how that does as a starting point. But even more so, I think about the lower parking lot by the church, which I think has tremendous potential value, and I'm very wary of this town circling it and saying that this is park forever. I think that's a big commitment and a big potential mistake. It has potential as housing and to improve our downtown as a place where there could be a business. If you ask anyone in town, are we in a housing crisis? They'll say yes. You know, rents are going up, property taxes going up, employers have a hard time finding people to work here because they can't live here affordably. And should our parks get better? Yes. But are we in a parks crisis? I don't think so. I want our parks to get better, but I don't think it's a crisis. Parking, do we have a parking crisis in this town? I find it easy to find a parking spot in this town. And you guys, I don't envy your jobs. You have to prioritize all of these problems. Everyone wants different things. And to my mind, housing is a five-alarm fire. And that plot of land might not look impressive, but it could be on the town sewer. It could be on the town water. This building, I'm not an engineer, but this building I know has plumbing to serve way more people than are here right now. What if we ran a pipe? We wouldn't even need to, you know, fix up our whole sewer system. Maybe we could run it off this building and we could have mixed use there. I'm not saying we shouldn't make the town green better or more beautiful, but I think that modest little parking lot is a jewel. I think it's a queen on our chessboard, and we should not trade it for a pawn. I'd say it's worth some time and money to pause, delay, adjust the plan, make it better, make it right for this town, so that we can preserve this possibility of affordable housing. Otherwise, who are those parks going to serve? They're not going to serve people. No one can afford to live here. Who's going to play in those parks?
Thank you. Anyone else? Michael, I'm going to postpone you I'm going to bump you for a minute because we have a proclamation, if you don't mind. So I read in the Millerton News about the Amenia Fire Company and their ropes crew with 3 pretty impressive and unusual rescues they did in the month of May. And I just thought that we should thank them for that. So all the board members have signed this. I'll read this proclamation. The town of Amenia duly recognizes the Amenia Fire Company and the Amenia Ropes team for their search and rescue efforts. Whereas the Amenia Ropes team, led by Fire Chief Christopher Howard, consists of volunteer members from beginner to competent ropes technicians: Aaron Howard, past chief; Richard Howard, senior past chief; Richie Howard, junior first lieutenant; Zachary Klinger, second lieutenant; Christopher Klinger, first lieutenant, rescue; Christian Larrabee, William Ford, and Jason D'Adio. And whereas the team consisting of 9 members who are all town of Amenia residents, and whereas the Amenia Ropes team having only been established for 5 years, and whereas when combined with other volunteer departments from Connecticut and Massachusetts makes up the Northwest Regional Ropes Rescue Team, and whereas these teams train monthly and have established a strong relationship, And whereas these teams provide effective, timely responses as part of their collaborative coordination, and whereas in the months of May and June 2024, the team participated in 4 technical rescues in their response region. And whereas at these incidents relied on their skill training and rapid responses that were critical in these challenging terrain areas, whereas they were spotlighted on national television, most notably as the team participated in a rescue involving later identified 30-pound terrier Rippy. Be it resolved, the Town of Amenia Town Board recognizes the Amenia Ropes team and their countless training hours and coordinated response efforts. And be it resolved, the Town of Amenia extends their appreciation to the Amenia Ropes team, who consistently has ensured a rapid and efficient assistance to those in need. And be it further resolved, we, the Town Board, and all residents of Amenia are beyond thankful for the service that they provide here in Amenia, New York. Yeah. So thank you very much. Who gets that? Thank you so much. And really, we're very lucky to have you all and for you to commit as much time as you do to what you do. So thank you. Yes. What? Are you getting a picture?
Come on, guys.
Do you want to move?
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, you should probably get up there with me.
Smoosh in, smoosh in.
Smush in.
Nice and tight. Oh. Why have you
It's been done for hours. Okay. Anyway, thank you. Really, that's really impressive. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gentlemen.
Okay, now, Michael, I thought we might need that side of the room for something.
Cleared out the whole side of the room.
I know.
What's going on here?
I've cleared out many a room, let me tell you.
Geez, Lee, that's a tough act to follow. I mean, that's real life and death stuff. I'll give it a shot. Feel a little bit like it pales in comparison.
She was saying it was attached, but we have it all.
Yeah, I understand that. I know it was attached.
Maybe it wasn't.
Check
It's not on the website.
And thank you, Mike, for working through a last-minute technical issue. You're my new hero at Town Hall. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Michael Peak. I'm Chair of the Conservation Advisory Council and co-coordinator of the Climate Smart Task Force here in the town of Amenia. Thank you to the Town Board for inviting me to speak with you again tonight. You all received a copy of Amenia's Climate Action Plan for Government Operations, and I hope you had a chance to take a look at it. Maybe. I know it's a lot, and it was a quick time frame. I thought it would be helpful to summarize for you and provide some background information for context as well. The Climate Action Plan is the culmination of 2 years' work by Amenia's Climate Smart Task Force via the Dutchess County Climate Action Planning Institute. It's a mandatory element of the Climate Smart Communities program, so it must be completed for bronze certification. We're currently in the process of applying for bronze certification right now and facing a deadline of July 7. So I very much appreciate the board working with us to accommodate this tight timeline. Please also note this report is based entirely on government operations, which is why it is called a GO-CAP. It does not include community components such as schools, businesses, residents, etc. Next slide, please. There you go. It's important to note that we were not alone on this journey. The working group that undertook this process was comprised of a number of government organizations throughout Dutchess County, as well as the county itself. We're grateful to our neighbors for their participation and collaboration. You can see it was a widespread effort. This process began with a greenhouse gas emissions report, with emissions broken down by sector. We then applied reduction goals per New York State's Climate Act and developed recommended strategies to meet those goals. Finally, we have an implementation plan with timeline and next steps. I'd also like to point out that while the current plan represents our recommended path to meeting New York State's requirements, we're looking at this as a living document that will support an ongoing process. We understand that some actions have greater impacts than others, and that some are more actionable than others. We also expect that new concepts and ideas will arise that will lead to new opportunities and new pathways. As I said, we began with a greenhouse gas emissions report, which breaks our emissions down by sector, which you can see here. It was interesting to learn that emissions from the old Amenia landfill, a former Superfund site, which has now been mitigated, capped, and vented, is likely the largest source of emissions in the town of Amenia, and by a significant margin. This is the area shown in blue, estimated at 91%. So, removing that slice of the pie was also very helpful. Looking at the revised chart, we can see that buildings and facilities, shown in yellow, as well as vehicle fleet, shown in orange, comprise the majority of our remaining emissions and thus represent the best opportunities for us to make additional change and reduce our impacts. With regard to the yellow, the town hall currently utilizes a high-efficiency boiler system that will be functional for the next 15 years, and we understand the nature of this commitment. But at the same time, we've got to look ahead and plan for the future. We're currently applying for a grant that would fund installation of heat pumps in the town hall gym and auditorium, allowing for more efficient heating and cooling of these spaces. Very timely. Town hall would then be much better equipped to meet its obligation as a designated cooling center, providing a valuable service to the community. As we understand, moving on to the orange, our highway department has a vehicle fleet of 11 large diesel-powered machines and 3 light-duty pickup trucks. Electrification of our fleet would be a significant achievement. It may take some time for the larger vehicles. To be honest, I'm not even sure what's available in terms of some of that equipment at this point. But the pickup trucks could be transitioned more easily. I think the highway department might like to have a couple of those Ford Lightning trucks. I mean, I have truck envy. I know I would. Once we had a handle on the current situation, we established reduction goals, or rather, New York State did that for us through the CLCPA, or Climate Act, as it is also known. This basically boils down to a 40% reduction in emissions by 2030 and an 85% reduction by 2050, and that's based on a starting point baseline of 2019, which is the year for our data. Based on this, we came up with recommended strategies. And by we, I mean everybody who participated in the group together. Strategy number 1, it's 3 simple strategies. Maybe not so simple. It's 3 strategies. Strategy number 1, install heat pumps in the town hall. Strategy number 2, transition the vehicle fleet. Strategy number 3, install biofilters and solar panels on the landfill. Here are some of the particulars for each of our 3 recommended strategies, along with lead actors, be it the supervisor's office, the building department, the highway department. And of course, it's always important to track progress through metrics and key performance indicators identified here in this chart. Also like to take just a minute to point out the co-benefits associated with our recommended strategies. Cost savings, energy security, job creation, public health, benefits to frontline communities. And particularly with the last 2, and given the weather this week, extreme and prolonged heat waves can put considerable strain on the reliability of energy delivery in peak periods, leading to possible service disruptions during those times when cooling is most needed, like right now. Through diversifying energy sources, such disruptions are less likely, and we're in a better position to cope with these situations. And then additionally, vulnerable populations, such as the elderly or chronically ill, low-income families, and people of color are at greater risk when it comes to the impacts of climate change. And that's what I'm talking about, or who we're talking about when we say frontline communities, the people who are affected first and affected the most. Amenia has also been designated a disadvantaged community, which I'm sure all the town board members are familiar with, and I think it's super important that we do what we can to serve those in our local community who need it the most. Okay, here I have a graph showing the potential impacts of our actions with reduction measures applied. It's a little complicated, it's a little small to see from here, but I can summarize and say if we successfully implement all 3 of our recommended strategies, we can comfortably meet our emissions reduction goal for 2030, and we'll be in good shape for meeting the 2050 goal as well. Again, this is like the second pie chart. We're not including emissions from the landfill here because it would be so large it would dwarf everything else. We would only see blue and it wouldn't really be that informative. But these calculations and this resulting graph is based on implementing all 3 recommended strategies. Here's a suggested implementation plan or timeline. What I'd like to say here is all of these strategies will likely be ongoing, with timelines that extend beyond 2030. Given our investment in the current heating system, we'd start with heat pumps in the gymnasium and auditorium, assuming we get the grant we're working on, and other improvements would follow somewhere down the line. Electrification of the vehicle fleet would occur as vehicles and machines need to be retired and or replaced. Installing biofilters at the landfill should be easy, should be a no-brainer, again, assuming that the grant we've applied for comes through. Well, the solar panels is obviously a more complex project, a loftier goal, and another matter entirely. In conclusion, relevant documents are posted on the town website. We welcome and appreciate any and all feedback we might get from the local community. Hopefully, the board has a better understanding of the GO-CAP now and feels comfortable moving forward. I understand you have a resolution before you tonight to adopt the GO-CAP. I ask that you please do so in support of your work, and I will thank you in advance for your support. Again, this is the final step we need to achieve bronze certification, which puts us in a higher tier when it comes to future grant applications. For example, the heat pumps and biofilters I talked about earlier. We also identified at a CAC meeting last night an opportunity that might provide much-needed additional funding to the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee. Finally, I'll say again that this plan can and should be adapted as needed moving forward. We're talking about a long-range time frame. And then, of course, again, having said it was a 2-year process and that a lot of people did a lot of work on this. Just a thank you to everybody, a lot of the folks here in Town Hall. I'm sure you all recognize a lot of those names, our nonprofit partners as well, at the Hudson Valley Regional Council. And thank you.
So I got a quick
Thank you,
question.
Michael.
Sure.
No, I was just thanking him.
Oh,
Go
okay.
right ahead.
So concerning the highway department fleet, I'm seeing you guys are looking to move this towards all electric by 2050. Did you consult and work with the highway department to see if this was feasible before including this in the plan?
Well, I know that it's feasible because of the people are doing it. It's going to happen.
So I just
obviously,
okay, I'm sorry.
obviously, you know, we would appreciate the guidance of the highway department as we move through this. This is not, this is what we're going to do, right? I mean, I think we're all interested in a sustainable future for Amenia, right? We were asked to map out the best possible pathway to that sustainable future, which is what we've done here. Obviously, it's not like we're going to say, hey, highway department, you got to do all of this. We would work closely with Megan and the highway department to implement
So
that.
the reason I asked is I reached out to the Weebatuck School District this year because I saw a grant available for all electric school buses. And they said that that's just not feasible in this area because of the winters. So that's why I asked that question.
Yeah.
You say it is feasible, I'm being told that it's not feasible.
Well,
and I was just asking
clearly
if
it
you
wouldn't happen
consulted with
without
them.
some pretty careful consideration. These are major investments, right? I mean, we're just not going to just go out and order one of these and one of those.
I was just curious if you had worked with the highway department before including this recommendation, that they move to all electric. That was my main question. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, anyone else on the board have a question?
I do have a question. You said this plan is on the website?
Yes.
The question is where? Somebody asked me where it was.
It's right on the front page of the website.
It's on the home page underneath. I did locate
Right
it
there.
just now. of town
Under
news and
Town News and
information.
Information.
Okay. All right. And the other question I have, again, is on the grants. I'm assuming those grants are, and there's a reason I'm asking this question, are reimbursable grants?
Different grants come with different stipulations. So,
Okay.
for example, the biofilter grant that I mentioned is no cost.
Okay.
No cost to the town whatsoever. In addition, it's worth pointing out, we talked a little bit about this last night, but Amenia's designation as a disadvantaged community actually allows us in a lot of times, in a lot of instances, to get a 20% matching rate versus the standard 50% that other towns would pay.
No,
Can Sharon ask questions?
no, sorry.
Explain the designation.
I'm sorry, didn't I just say no, Sharon? I just said no.
No.
You can't ask questions from the audience, cannot.
You can shoot me an email.
But you can talk to Michael later.
Again,
He's
any
very
and all
friendly.
feedback is helpful, and this is a plan. It's a roadmap. There's a lot of work to be done to try and get these things done. And, I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate your support.
Thank you. And to the committee and all the work they've done. Tracy, there's lots of seats over there, just so you know. Lots of seats over there, okay. You can cut it. Oh, all right, that's even better. Okay, where were we? Okay, so next presentation is from the Housatonic Valley Association. Claire Way, who has been before us before, wants to talk about the surface water monitoring that the wastewater committee requested of her. And Charlie, since you're chair of the wastewater committee, why don't you introduce it?
Yeah, I'm going to introduce it. So Charlie Miller, wastewater committee chairman. Let me just get my bearings. Sorry. I'm thinking about climate smart now. Thank you. As we've discussed before, the sewer feasibility study for the hamlet of Amenia, which was completed in 2022, was submitted for the state's IUP, which is the way in which you get grant funding for water and clean water, which is sewer projects. The largest element of that scoring is if the project occurs where there is an impaired water body. The water body that moves through the hamlet of Amenia is Wassaic Creek. Wassaic Creek is 54 miles long, and the Department of Environmental Conservation does not consider it to be impaired. However, they've never done testing in our hamlet. So the Wastewater Committee last year approached the board to hire HVA, Housatonic Valley Association, to do this testing so that we could possibly see if there were impairments, specifically E. coli and surfactants, which are the biggest element in soaps. So I'm just going to go through a couple of these slides. HVA has done a lot of work with the town of Amenia. Let me get to here because I know we've got a long time. So, and Claire's going to jump in after these first couple of slides. But HVA was founded in 1941. It is a nonprofit conservation organization comprised of ecologists, environmentalists, biologists, and they do have some policy lobbying elements to them as well. They really work to conserve the environmental health and the natural character around the Housatonic Valley. They have a number of years ago, they actually were certified by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation as a professional evaluation of rivers and streams, the PEERS program. It's a program that actually isn't around any longer, but the standards of that program were applied to this study, which Claire will speak about in a minute. And also in 2024, they developed, or they finalized, the 10 Mile River Watershed Management Plan, which Amenia adopted, along with a couple of other towns. So why this project? As I mentioned, it's ultimately to be able to demonstrate that we have impaired water body in the hamlet of Amenia, specifically, we believe, from failing septic systems. So this is a map of Amenia, and the blue is the watershed here. So for forever and a day, people have spoken about failing septic systems. As I mentioned, in 2022, the wastewater committee sent out a survey, and a number of those results talked about odors that people had found, that there were some failing septics that you could actually visibly see, and sewage in people's backyards. In 2023, Ty and Bond delivered our feasibility study, as I mentioned before, and a big element of the grant funding is for us to be able to demonstrate that we do have an impaired water body. We're not sure if DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, or I should say the EFC, will accept our reporting. That's still sort of on the table, but at least we will be able to demonstrate that we do have these issues with our surface water. This, I know it's a little small, is a slide that shows the water bodies that come through Amenia, and there are 3 different classifications for those, which Claire is going to run through shortly. I just want to make sure there was any. Do you want to finish up from here? Yeah. So, and then I'll jump in. One thing I do want to say, because this is probably going to come up, is that this was not a project or an exercise to track down sources of contamination. So I know some people may want to know, well, why don't you go find where those septic systems are, or where that water is going into that. The state does not look at it that way. You just have to show that there's an impairment, that you actually have this. And truthfully, some of it could be ag. However, cows don't take baths, so if there's soaps, which you'll go through all the testing sites that we chose, were prevalent in all of those sites.
Thanks, Charlie. Always nice to be introduced. Yeah, my name is Claire Way. I work for the Housatonic Valley Association as their 10-mile river watershed manager. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me. I'll just correct one thing on the About HVA slide. The 10-mile river watershed management plan was made public in 2021, and it was officially adopted by the town of Amenia by resolution in 2024, so this past spring. I have a copy of the report here that I will leave with you. These slides that I'm going to go through are not representative of the extent of this 120-page report. I'm told it's available on the town website, and my email is cwegh@hvatoday.org, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, so all these maps were put together by the Housatonic Valley Association. We were testing sample sites within the proposed sewer district and within the hamlet of Amenia, which is what we're calling the intersection of 22 and 44, so the downtown. The area that's shaded in purple is what we're calling the hamlet, and these lines are the water bodies that we were sampling. The DEC classifies water bodies in a A, B, C, D form. So the lower the letter, the worse the water quality. And then they also classify them by their ability to support a trout population. So all of the water bodies that we were sampling were class C. So that means that they're designated as second degree contact recreation water bodies, which means you can fish, but be careful, maybe don't go swimming. And then some of them were class CT, which means they support a trout population, and some of them were class CTS, which is trout spawning. So they are an ideal habitat for trout to reproduce. And that's just how the DEC designates water body classes. So the name of this project, Ambient Water Quality Monitoring Survey in the Hamlet of Amenia. Ambient, I'm just going to define some terms real quick, and then I'll get into the actual results. So ambient water is in contrast to, ambient sampling is in contrast to track down sampling. So as Charlie mentioned, we weren't tracing sources of pollution to specific properties or finding where those bacteria or nutrients were coming from. We were just identifying that they were there. So that's what ambient monitoring is. Surface water is all the water that you can see on the surface of the earth. So that's in contrast to aquifers or groundwater or drinking water. It's the lakes and streams that you can touch and hang out with, especially on a hot day like this. As Charlie mentioned, we collect data under what's called a quality assurance project plan, which is essentially an umbrella document that outlines our quality assurance and quality control procedures in the field. And that's our way of making sure that we're getting good, legitimate data, we're following the scientific method, we're handling our samples properly, et cetera. And that's something that's necessary in order for our data to be used by state regulatory agencies or by the EPA. So standard operating procedures were used under this quality assurance project plan. We call it a QAP. At the end of the report, you can see my actual data sheets. So the two main data points or types of data that I collected that I'm going to talk about today are E. coli and surfactants. And I'll define those later, but in addition to the bacterial and chemical data that we were collecting, we also did observational data like weather conditions, water clarity, phytoplankton, et cetera. They're listed on there. And that's also part of this quality assurance protocols that we have to use. Also important to note was that I did 5 sampling events total in both wet and dry weather. It's important to collect data in both wet weather and dry weather because water behaves differently when it's raining, as you might imagine. Wet weather was defined as a day with greater than 0.1 inches of rain in previous 24-hour period. Dry weather, less than 0.1 inches of rain. In the field, we collected temperature, conductivity, and salinity and pH data points using YSI multi-parameter instrument, and we used field test kits to test surfactants, chlorine, and ammonia. E. coli, phosphorus, and nitrate and nitrite data were we got from certified labs where I dropped off samples. Yes, that's what I just said. Okay, so as I mentioned, we weren't tracing pollution sources to specific properties, but we did select testing sites in order to bracket areas where we thought pollution might be coming from. So I'll get more into that later with some examples, but overall we sampled 12 sites within the Amenia hamlet. And this is a map of those sites. I know that's really hard to see from here, but this table at the top is the locations of each of the sample sites, what type of sample site they are, and our naming convention for those sites. What's important to know on this map, these are unnamed tributaries to Wassaic Creek, so we had to invent our own names for these sample sites. So the stream on the left side of that map we're calling West Branch. The stream on the east side of the map we're calling East Branch. And then there's 2 branches that go into each of those branches. So we're calling those West Tributary and East Tributary, respectively, for both of those branches. So the naming convention, you'll see on the right side, it says West Tributary, East Branch, upstream, Cumberland Farms. So that's generally how we went about talking about these sample sites. And that red star is Town Hall.
And Claire, I'm just going to nudge you to accelerate because we have a very long
Absolutely,
agenda
sorry. This is an example of an outfall. So that's a pipe. We're assuming it's a stormwater outfall, so the storm sewer system collects water when it rains, and then it enters the stream. So that was a sample site, the water coming from that outfall. And then we also sampled the in the channel of the stream. So that's my example of outfall versus ambient monitoring. Okay, so these were the days when you might have seen me in waders walking around Amenia. I had some great conversations with folks in the community who were wondering what on earth I was up to. The orange dots were dry sampling events, blue dots, wet sampling events, so that's sunny versus rain. And here's what you really need to know. So the reason that I'm mainly going to talk about E. coli and surfactants is because those are the main indicators for, so E. coli specifically is a bacteria that's found in the lower intestinal tract of mammals. So it is naturally occurring. You know, there's always going to be some E. coli in a wetland, for example, but not at the numbers that we're seeing. The EPA threshold for E. coli in surface water is 410 colony-forming units per 100 milliliters. And so that's the threshold for water that is safe to recreate in. You'll see the results in red are times when that number exceeded 410. On the September 11th sampling day, they got to 2,400, which was the reporting limit for the test that the lab was running. So it could very well have been higher than 2,400. And after that, they changed the way that they did the test to raise the reporting limit. And you'll see the last day I went out on May 8th, we got a result that was 20,000, which is a lot. This is a map that shows the data that I was just talking about. Surfactants are a chemical compound that reduces surface tension between liquids to promote lathering. So it's a chemical that's added to household detergents, household cleaning products, soaps, face wash, and that's what makes products lather. And it's not naturally occurring. It shouldn't be found in nature. And same thing here, red results indicate times when it was above the EPA threshold of 0.1.
And what's worst?
Which site was worse?
Well, no, not which site. How high did it go beyond the limit?
I don't know the other ones.
Sorry, I thought that was easy.
No, the highest was 1.
Okay.
So the threshold is 0.01.
Oh,
So we got to a whole number there.
thank you.
Yeah. So I tested for a lot of other things besides E. coli and surfactants. All that data is in the report, which is on the town website. We were contracted to collect data and then tell the story of what we were seeing from that data. Our results demonstrated that surface water bodies within the hamlet are impaired. Surfactant and E. coli data suggests that sanitary wastewater is entering surface water from adjacent land use, potentially but not limited to failing septic systems. Stormwater outfalls had consistently high levels of both E. coli and surfactants. The presence of elevated E. coli and surfactant levels in storm sewer effluent, so the water that's coming from storm sewers, can indicate direct connections with household or commercial wastewater and the stormwater system. Surfactants in particular are not present at the amounts detected through this study in natural systems, and a community wastewater treatment system would definitely reduce the pollutant loading that we're seeing.
Thank you, Claire. Does anyone on the
Thank
board
you.
have a
Any
question?
questions?
I have a quick question. Something that kind of stuck out to me was one of your test locations was here on Route 22 over here by Freshtown. Is that correct?
There was one, if you're
seemed to be
on
high in E.
22
coli?
facing Town Hall, there was one directly to the left of Town Hall. There's a small stream that goes under 22.
So it's not the one further upstream?
No, that was the furthest north testing site that we had.
Okay. So it's kind of my take from this that we have E. coli in our surface water.
Correct.
Eventually, that's going to make it to our drinking water, yes, no?
That's not something I can speak to. The last
Common
two,
sense tells you that's the way it would work.
huh?
Water, I say common sense would say water goes downhill, so.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We were asked by the wastewater committee to add a sample site in our last two sampling events, which were both in 2024, specifically to get closer to the Lavelle Road wells, which I know are a source of drinking water for the hamlet. And let me see. So I only did two sampling events at that location. One of them I did find surfactants. But because I only did two sampling events, I can't really speak to a trend.
Basic science from when I was a kid said water traveled down and filtered down through the ground and eventually made it to your drinking supply.
That's the concern, for sure.
Dutchess County has asked us to figure that out specifically.
Yeah,
so that's the Gawoody thing that's later on the agenda.
I think the town needs to wake up and pay attention that this could be a major issue in a short period of time for us, especially if we don't address this wastewater system.
Okay, agreed. Claire, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks for
your time.
listening to that long.
Oh, okay. Okay.
My email again, cwegh@hvatoday.org, if you have questions.
Thanks. Okay, so moving along. Oh my God, the supervisor report. It's a shorter one than usual, luckily. Okay, so senior swim, no news, still a shortage of lifeguards.
There was a third presentation?
What?
There was one more presentation. You're not doing that tonight?
Which end?
Nope.
GWDI.
Oh, no, but that's the Water District report, so not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Charlie, are there any images? No, so you're done, Mike, on that.
For the moment.
For the moment. There's no news on the senior swim, no news really on the sidewalk to Beekman Park because they're still waiting for a DOT okay on that. And there are no stripes for the town hall parking lot. They're waiting for the person who does that to become available. The highway garage, as you know, their requests for proposals were sent out. They're due at the end of July, and we're voting on two related resolutions tonight. The Water District, we need to review the RFPs and select a water engineer to design the system. I had thought that we would vote on that tonight. We're going to discuss it, but it's not, we didn't have a recommendation completed. Gymnasium floor, the bids were open last time for providing and installing the floor, and we hope to select the vendor tonight. The town hall interior, the planning board has tested this room. Had a first televised meeting here, which seemed to go fine, but ZBA didn't have a meeting this month, so we need to wait for them to let us know that they can live here. Northeast Community Center, we're waiting for their attorney to approve the agreement for their satellite office and farmers market here. The market is supposed to begin Friday, no, that's not right. It's supposed to begin, 28th, Friday, June 28th. I think the hours are going to be 5 to 8 p.m. But after the bakery incident, don't hold me to that, the specifics of that. There'll be an announcement closer to the start date. Workforce housing, I have a meeting with the regional director of Habitat for Humanity next week to find out what they're doing in town, since I don't really at this point feel at all up to date on that. In terms of committee vacancies, we still need new members for recreation, for the water district, wastewater, and we need 2 new members on the housing board. All of those are very fun committees, I know from personal experience. So please send a letter of interest to Dawn Marie Klingner, our town clerk at Town Hall. And we've been discussing a next meeting. Of course, the first Thursday of July is the 4th, which is not a good day for us to meet. So I think we've decided, we haven't heard from all parties, but I think we've decided that we'll meet on Monday, July 1st, beginning at 6 p.m., and that will be announced on the website as well, because since we have a lot of stuff to continue.
6 p.m.?
6 p.m., if that's all right with you, yeah. Okay, so supervisor's report is done.
Are we good on that for the July 1st?
I think everyone had said,
we were just waiting on, we were just waiting on Brad
to make sure he was
All right,
available.
so we're good. All right, I just want to.
Okay, thank you. So that's it. So town clerk report, Dawn, take it away.
All right, good evening. I'm going to be quick. I want to make one final report on our 2024 tax collection. This year, my total warrant, as we've announced, and you guys heard me read over and over, the total warrant this year was $9,626,936.22. Total taxes that were collected, $7,062,873.59. Total collected in penalties, $17,022.78. So of the 215 tax collecting parcels, 154 unpaid have been remitted to the Commissioner of Finance for their next phases. This evening, I do have to present with regret the resignation from the Housing Board. Jeff Barnett-Wimsby has tendered his resignation. The board accepts.
I make a motion to accept with regret.
I'll second that.
Leo. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Winters?
Yes.
Revelard?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
I'm also presenting our vouchers, as you guys have had the opportunity to review each of the vouchers, and I'm presenting the abstract on this date totaling $167,610.64 with a breakdown in our general fund. And this is our prepaids and our monthly totals being $129,033.82. Highway Fund, $29,411.08. Amenia Lighting, $1,196.08. Wasaic Lighting, $454.78. Amenia Water, $7,514.88. Again, for a total of $167,610.64. And at this time, I'm seeking authorization for the supervisor to pay claims.
I'd make that motion, except I'm the supervisor.
I'll second it, or I'll make that motion.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thanks.
Paul.
Second.
Brad. Brad, I heard him. He's seconded it.
Do
Supervisor,
we need to sign this or just sign?
no, just the other one. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Councilpersons Winters?
Yes.
Revelard?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Also, you guys know we talked earlier at one of our previous meetings, we were taking in, the recreation was accepting names. The recreation was accepting names, and the rec director was working with collecting those that were interested in serving food at the upcoming music series. And I know Katie's been working very hard on that, but we did receive 3 individuals who have submitted their peddler's permit. So at this time, I'm seeking authorization for the supervisor to go ahead and approve and send me the letter for them to use the town hall, because you need to have the permission, so that's what we're seeking. And it's Coleman Doyle, Barbara Bishop, and Blackbird Bistro. And that is for your 6 weeks music series here at Town Hall.
And
I can make that motion?
Sure?
I'll second that.
Great. And then you're just going to work on that with me and get it to me so I can put it with their applications. Okay? So that'd be Supervisor Blackman,
yes.
Council members Winters,
Yes.
Revelard,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Good. And then,
That's a scary pile, Dawn.
it's not, I know,
It's almost there.
it's almost done. Just a friendly reminder, well, first of all, we did have our fire department here. And as we honor those men who work so hard, they do like to have some fun. So my sense of fun is drawing blood and coming to the
Dawn, we've had this conversation before.
I know. So just to remind everybody, the blood drive is coming up at the Amenia Firehouse, July 2nd from 3 to 7:30. But, we like to have more than just, drawing blood and that kind of funness. I know. So the fire company is going to be hosting their open house and carnival food night this July 5th. So it's Friday, July 5th from 5 to 9 p.m. They're going to have there's going to be a firework display at 9:15 at night, but come down, support the hardworking gentlemen that you saw here tonight. Buy some food, check out the firehouse, just be part of the community and enjoy the evening. So that's a big welcome for everybody to come down. Get to meet us in person and up close and talk to us and ask us any questions. And then here, going on, Rebuild Together, the Hudson Valley, they do have their annual no-cost home repair for qualified homeowners. There is information on the entranceway when you come in, and the applications are also posted and available, and when Erica gets back next week, she'll post this online for us.
Great, thank you.
And that concludes the town clerk's report.
Well, that wasn't scary at all. Water district report. Charlie, were you going to explain Gawudi?
Yeah, you have that.
It's some acronym. It's some acronym.
It's a terrible acronym.
It's a really bad.
Was it Guidi?
Gawudi? I don't
So,
know.
yeah, it's pronounced Guidi.
Says you.
I know, well, that's what people say. It stands for groundwater under the direct influence of surface water, although they leave off the rest of the letters. So groundwater is water in the ground, so in an aquifer, and surface water, as Claire mentioned, is anything on the surface of the earth, right? Ponds, streams, creeks. So the Lavelle Road wells, and there's a chart in here a little bit later. So there's 2 wells on Lavelle Road, 4 and 4A. They currently are the only wells that are providing water to the water district. The other 2 wells are offline and have been for, I don't know, a little shy of a year. They are both, this can show you how deep they are, and they go through limestone into the aquifer. And the reason that is important, this is a map so that people can see. The blue star up at the very top in the middle is Town Hall, where we are now, and the red circle is where the Lavelle Roads are. People who don't know what Lavelle Road is, it runs perpendicular between 22 and Railroad Avenue, thank you, sorry.
At the Catholic Church.
It's a very small spot, and so the Dutchess County Department of Health, after doing a sanitary survey, this, by the way, is another chart that shows in the green is federal floodplain, so you can see how it's just on the cusp. And there's also this pond here that is in the middle. Some people may or may not know that there's a pond in the middle of the hamlet, which is a surface water. Again, this is an aerial photo of the Lavelle Road wells. It's a rectangular parcel. Triangular parcel. And the picture at the top is a photo taking, looking towards the wells, so facing east. And you'll see the pond there on the left-hand side. So the Dutchess County Department of Health did a sanitary survey at the end of last year, and they came back and issued a letter requiring us to do GUIDI testing because we meet 2 factors. We are by a water body. Oh, hold on, I'll go to the next one. But so I'll get to that in a second. So the town board hired Delaware Engineering to put together a protocol. Dutchess County required that, and they required that the protocol be submitted to them for approval. So Delaware created that protocol over the last month, and on June 7th, they submitted it to Dutchess County, and we're now just waiting for Dutchess County's approval to implement that. So as I mentioned, the Lavelle Road wells are in limestone. So I, by the way, am not a geologist, I'm not a science teacher, so this is just my little overview, but I think it's helpful for our whole community to understand why this is important. So limestone has eventually will develop fracks, so cracking. And sort of to go back to Paul's comment about, surface water eventually gets into our aquifer. Yes, water is not created. It goes in a circle, it evaporates, it rains, it goes down to the ground, it percolates through the ground and hits an aquifer, and eventually it pops back up, or we drill a hole and we pump it up, right? So to the extent that there is any fracking there, there's a possibility of that groundwater actually going faster through the limestone and getting into the aquifer. And so this GUIDI testing is to test to see if that's actually happening. It's kind of interesting the way it's done. Here's a little picture of what I just described. Clouds, rainwater, water goes through, gets eventually to an aquifer or into a standing body of water, evaporates.
You could be a high school science teacher.
The circle goes on and on. I miss my calling. I love that we're drinking water that the dinosaurs drank. So Claire's presentation of that report is very apt with this. You know, the way that surface water is impacted or contaminated is by, leaching wells that don't actually percolate correctly, or, throwing stuff on the ground, oil spills, all of those things that we're familiar with that ultimately would contaminate water. And, oh, by the way, so this chart, that very bottom is showing, the layers of the earth that water ultimately travels through before it gets to an aquifer. And the reason that that's important, going back to sort of the E. coli can only last for so long. So you actually, you filter out water as it goes through all of these layers. But if there are fracking in there, then possibly the time that it's on the surface to the time that it gets to your aquifer is too short. So the GUIDI indicators is if there is any kind of bacterial element in our tested water. No, our water is clean and safe to drink. People may think that there's, it might not have the clearest quality or something of that. That's just sort of a characteristic, but it has nothing to do with the health and safety of the water. We've had no documented nitrates for the past 3 years, and in our area there's been no contamination. But the reason that we have to do this GUIDI testing is because we meet 2 of these criteria. One is that we're near a surface body, and we have limestone wells. So, those 2 things. This is a bizarre chart that is issued by the state that kind of is a flow chart of when you need to test for this. So because we have these 2 elements, we go over to the right because we say yes to that, and now we have to perform a testing. This is the second chart, which is like, if our testing says yes, we need to then go to the next phase, which would ultimately be doing NPR testing, which is testing for microparticulates. So source screening, we meet the source screening requirements to move to the detailed evaluation. So the detailed evaluation plan is what ultimately Delaware put together, and the town board has. And what that will be is monitoring the raw water that comes out of both wells. So the wells, water comes up, it ultimately gets filtered, chlorinated. So there needs to be an actual test before that chlorination. One of the wells has a spigot, the other one will have to be installed. It's not very costly. This testing will happen daily for a year. So our water operator is actually on site every day, so that's not going to be really an extra cost. And what they're going to be sampling for is conductivity, which is interesting. It's if water can conduct electricity, and that's because of certain things that are in the water, and for temperature. So both of those things will be tested with a handheld meter that the operator will purchase, which again is not very expensive. This bottom picture shows where the engineer has stated testing should happen. So they will test the wells, and they will also test the southern portion of the pond that's right across the little road there from the wells. And the whole idea, I think this is really cool, is that they're testing for this, hold on, this is again the circulation of everything. Let me get to, I had a chart, where is it? Oh, it's gone. They're actually testing to see if there is a correlation between the temperature of the surface water in the pond and the temperature of the water coming out of the wells. Now, it's not that they're the same temperature, but it's over time if you actually see a dip in the surface water temperature, and within 30, 60 days, you see another dip that happens in the water that you're bringing out of the well. And you track that over time. So if they begin to see correlation to it, that's where there's possibly a connection between the surface water influencing the well water, or the water in the aquifer. Pretty cool, right? So if that actually happens, then there will be It's so funny. Where's this? Oh, this is evaluation. So this is a lot of gobbledygook. Who cares? But ultimately, the very last bullet point is if there is that correlation, then in a 100-day cycle, the water will then be tested for these microscopic particulate. It's so funny. I guess we had a lot more slides, but they're gone anyway. The interesting thing is our water is already tested. You know, we pass all of our tests. Our water is clean and safe to drink. If these MPAs, these microparticulates, are actually found, the Dutchess County would require us to add filtration to our system. You know, so another reason that this is very important is that the town board has been assessing, you know, how to ultimately repair the Lavelle Road wells because they desperately need to be repaired. Well, not necessarily just the wells, but there's a pump house. Water comes up, it gets pumped to our storage facility, and there's a backup generator there that's rusted out. You know, there's chlorination there that is the facility itself is rusting. So that project, we need to know if ultimately additional filtration will have to be added there as well. So this happens over the course of a whole year. But within the first 100 days, there will be some indication if there's actually a correlation there.
So Charlie, I'm assuming that the two wells that are shut down by Dutchess County are the Lavelle Road wells?
No, Lavelle Road is are the only two wells that are currently operating. It is 5 and...
Six, I think.
Six,
Why are they shut down?
So the previous water operator, they aren't high producing wells, not like Lavelle. The previous operator had recommended, I believe this is the storyline, so I just want to put that little asterisk there, had recommended that they be, I thought he said that they were going to be drilled deeper. It was ultimately that they were fracked, I believe, to try to bring in more water. That whole regime had not been properly put through Dutchess County, and so those wells have not been operational since that happened. Delaware recommended that we sort of hold off on doing that. We do this. We also, the town board rather, engage an engineer for the overall system and try to put together a plan, because there may be benefits to leaving that offline and using that as a means of getting grant funding. I think that there's a couple of regimes around that.
Charlie, I had a question. I seem to remember that we were talking about abandoning Lavelle Road earlier.
So yes, there has been the town board authorized exploration of wells that are on the Sims property. That work was done by the previous operator. It was expensive. I think it was testing those one or two wells that are there. There hasn't been an agreement with that owner to possibly sell those. The number that had been thrown around at the time was just like $500,000 to purchase that property, and then of course it would be, you know, more money to ultimately put pumps there and all of that other stuff. So the engineer that's doing this work and another one that we've talked to felt that Lavelle is actually really well pumping, you know, it has good capacity, and that raising the well heads, wish I had photos, but so that you guys understand. So well 4 is actually located inside the pump building, which is really just a shed that's falling down. You no longer can have a well inside your pump house. Well 4A was drilled, I don't know, 100 yards away, and it just sits open. So those engineers feel that those well heads could be lifted, because right now sometimes they flood because the surface water comes into them, so that they could be lifted and a new structure could be built.
Which, I mean, conceptually, I'm really glad to hear, because I've always thought from the very first time that I came on the board and I met with Marco down at those stations, that was, obviously I'm not an expert on those things, but it seemed like there's common sense to do was to raise up the pipes above any possible ground surface flooding into them. So, and the well house, which is ready to fall down, floods all the time, raised up as well. It just seemed like a simple solution.
Yeah, no, I think it can be. I mean, clearly there are issues. It's a very small parcel that we own there, but theoretically it should be able to. And a couple of the engineers have examples of how they have raised them quite high, truthfully. I mean, 20 feet in the air.
Yeah, I think we maybe didn't get the best advice from the previous water operator.
It is definitely a financial constraint too. To be honest with you, the work at Lavelle, I'm going to throw a number at the wall, but it's probably north of $1 million. The work to do something at the property that has the well that we tested last year is well exceeds that, I would imagine, after acquisition, because you still have to build pump house, and you have to, we already have a pipe that goes to this site. I mean, you would have to pipe it into the tank, sorry. Anyway, so hopefully we'll hear back from Dutchess County soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have something from the building department that you'd like to share, Dawn?
Sure, I do believe in our packets this evening.
There is.
We do have our building department report submitted by our building inspector, Mike Segelkin, and he's reporting that there's been the completion of 3 municipal searches, fire inspections, and building permits, and the total in that department was $13,109.75, and also attached is the status report for violations. And while I'm on acknowledging receipt of reports, I do believe in our email earlier yesterday, or Tuesday, we received the operation and our balance sheets for this month.
Great. Okay, 30 building permits.
30 building permits.
Yeah. Beats a stick in the eye. Okay. Megan, do you have stuff to say as a highway department report?
Yes. I don't have too much, just want to give you guys an update. Last week, we were up on Tower Hill and Kennel. We got the road all mowed, weed whacked, and cleaned up. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, Calaruso came in. We got the road topped, so it's done. There's a little more work. We still have shoulders to back up. I pulled off from doing that right now. We have the shared paver, so we've been out doing a little bit of that. It's been hot this week, so maybe next week when it cools down. And then we'll probably, once we get done with the paver, that goes to Northeast. Northeast helped us. Truck laborer and Town of Washington helped us also haul in some blacktop. And then we will go help Northeast. They have it next month. And then next project would be, again, jumping back up to Tower Hill, getting our shoulders done. And then I got some oil and stoning. I don't have an exact date, but maybe next month, board meeting, end of July, August. And that's all I really have.
And we have 2 more highway garages to visit, as I recall.
When you're ready.
Okay. I'll put that on my list.
I can do the recreation report.
Thank you.
So summer camp for this summer was canceled due to low enrollment. All refunds have gone out to families that signed up. The summer music series, we're still looking for a stage for the concerts. If anyone may have the perfect stage, please reach out to the recreation director at 845-373-8860, extension 124. Concerts start July 8th at 6 p.m. on the basketball courts. Other upcoming events, Monday, July 22nd at 10:30 a.m., 2x2 Animal Haven at Town Hall by the playground. Senior programs, free senior picnic July 27th at 12 p.m. at Wassaic Firehouse. Last day to sign up is July 18th. Hunterdon Hill Playhouse trip is August 1st. Last day to sign up is July 8th. Mohegan Sun Casino trip, September 12th. Last day to sign up is August 2nd. There will be a trip in December. Keep an eye out for information on that. For the mailer, if anyone has an event that they would like to be added, event information needs to be submitted by June 24th at 2 p.m. And you can email Katie at recdirector@ameniany.gov. Miscellaneous stuff she has. NECC is offering a breakfast lunch program. It's going to be offered during AWCO and Millerton camps. Children do not need to be enrolled in these summer camp programs to be able to receive the breakfast and lunch. Anyone interested will need to reach out to NECC directly. Another reminder that Beacon Park is not a dog park. Dogs are welcome on leashes and bags are available at entrance to use for cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other boards or committees that we're neglecting? Okay, I'm going to assume that's a yes. Right? Okay.
I just meant to move. That's it.
Okay. Discussion items. So the first one is the floor, the bids that we got for the gym floor. It's sort of complicated because there were 4 bidders, but there were 2 different options for refinishing the floor. One was if we can, when we take up the tile and plywood that's covering the original wood floor, if the wood floor is in good condition, it's less expensive to refinish that than it would be to pour a new floor, and it's more durable typically to have a maple floor than a rubber type floor, although we've gotten good reports on this one. So the price from what is the firm? GAI, thank you. The prices from GAI were lower for both the wood floor and for the poured floor that we had selected. Tracy has been the architect on this and has been a trooper. I don't know if anyone had any thoughts or questions looking at the information from the flooring vendors. There was a spreadsheet and the individual bids, and
Yeah, the only question I had, Ian Hurd already answered, so.
oh, okay. Well, that was easy. Charlie or Tracy, do you have anything you want to add to that in terms of the floor bids?
You got to go up to the microphone if you're going to speak.
Oh, you have to go to the
You got to
mic.
go to the microphone if you're going to speak.
Okay. It's going to be hard for me to hear you from there.
Oh.
The only problem.
All right, well, we'll wait till you come back then.
Well, I don't know.
You got to go to the microphone.
The microphone for our TV audience.
Leo, if there aren't any questions, I'm just curious what you would like me to add to it.
No, I mean, I just wanted to see if you had anything to add before we voted on the resolution, or if anyone had any questions on the board.
I do. And looking at it, I mean,
you can come back if you want to.
You got to speak.
You could, if you come, you can come front again.
So considering you have to take off the layers to see what's there. That's common sense. And then our plan should develop after that. Because if the floor can't be preserved, then we'll have to put one of these other layers on, which is, now you're doubling the price almost.
Do you want me to add?
No, I think what we're doing is removing, checking to see if we can refinish.
Yeah, so basically there was two quotes that came through. There was one to refinish the floor, and then if it turns out that can't be done, then it would be to pour an alternate material flooring. GAI, their bid was the lowest on both of those. So the resolution basically states that they are the lowest bid for each of those aspects, and it sets out the pricing.
Right. Yeah. Can I just, so Tracy and I put together an RFP that was ultimately actually published on bid.net. And part of that RFP required that respondents quote for taking up the vinyl and the subfloor, the plywood, and if the flooring beneath it could be salvaged, give us a price for that. And then also give us a price if you take up the subfloor and the vinyl and the maple cannot be salvaged, what a poured floor would be. And Tracy had done a lot of research on this Herculon floor, and so we asked them to bid on that. 2 bidders did the maple floor, this will work, and did the Herculon. And 2 bidders asked to do alternatives to those, which we issued an addendum and said, yes, you can put a quote out for that. So the 2 that did the Maple and the Herculon, those are the ones that Tracy presented, and GAI was the lowest reasonable bidder. The alternative flooring types were much more expensive, significantly more. So what we've recommended is that the town board approve the highest cost of those 2, which is the poured floor, $41,500, and the hope is that the Maple can be salvaged and it will be less expensive.
That was exactly my understanding. I just thought maybe the public would like to hear that.
Okay, yeah. And so to put some numbers to this, do you mind if I do that, Leo?
No, but I was going to say that Ian actually in the changed the resolution to indicate the price of the wood, restoring the wood floor, and then the price of the poured floor as 2 separate items for each, for the bidder, just so that's made clear.
Yeah, and they got the resolution clear.
A little different.
Okay, so what I will say, that may or may not be helpful. I don't know if the resolution is going to allow for the highest amount to be spent. In working with Tracy, we assumed, I think it's 15% of the original Maple may have to be replaced. It's damaged or something. So both of these bidders gave us a cost per square foot to have to replace that. And it may be more than 15%, but under GAI, even if it was 25% of the underfloor had to be replaced, it would still be cheaper than the poured floor.
And if we were to put a new floor on top of what we have, we don't know how high we're going to have to raise it. Thank you. We don't know how much we'd have to raise the floor. We have doors going into that room that wouldn't work then, and we would have to build ramps, basically, at every entrance.
Which brings up a question I had all along. What's underneath? Is there a basement under that, or is it?
It's a slab on grade.
It is, oh, okay.
It's a 2-part slab, like a 4-inch structural and another 2-inch topping slab, which is where the wood strips are that the wood floor is attached to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very stable substrate. And then the wood, I don't know if you remember the samples that Leo brought to the meeting, but the wood, we took 2 core samples and the wood seems to be in very good shape. We think that maybe the tiles were put over when the school moved in, and maybe the lunchroom, they thought maybe that was easier to keep clean. But the tiles have seemed to not held up to use. They break all the time, so John's always having to repair them. And the fear is if we put something, since they're so unstable, if we put something over it, we don't know how that's going to react. So all the companies that talked about going over it said, well, we'd have to come in and put cement over those,
Right.
so that,
Which doesn't make sense, being there's cement underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the advantage to the poured floor was that it has some give to it, and also that it's, relatively thin compared to adding another layer of plywood and a different kind of floor. The other 2 bidders were offering something that's a sheet flooring with welded seams, which was much more expensive to actually repair because where the poured floor you can actually pour more of it. With the this sheet floor you actually have to take up a strip, like a 5-foot, I think, strip.
Yeah, there's like 6-foot wide strips.
6.
And then the room's 54 feet long, so.
So you'd have to take up the whole thing if there was damage.
Right. Whereas you can spot repair the poured floor, which seemed like, looking ahead into the future, that would be less expensive if something were to happen. And users that I spoke to who have had the poured floor from like 4 to 10-year time periods said that, one location, they use it as an auditorium, graduation, book sales, half the school comes in through it. I said, do you take your shoes off to go in there? I said, no, we never take our shoes off. She said, There's no stains, there's no divots, it really held up well. And then another one that was a gym for 10 years had held up well, but that was a dark maroon, so we don't know about the staining necessarily. Anyway, so it seemed like, in researching it, it seemed like a good solution.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
So unless there are other questions, I'll read the rest of the first resolution. Okay, and I have to find the one that Ian marked up with all that info. Oh, because I'm looking in the wrong pile, as usual.
We're not going to resolutions, right?
He was
We still have all these other.
Oh, we have discussion items, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we
Not
have
time
all
for
these other
resolutions.
discussion items.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad you were keeping an eye on that. Okay, so that was basically the discussion for the gym floor bid, so we can vote on that later when we get to resolutions. I pulled the water engineers RFQ because I felt like it needed, there were 7 bids, and I thought that needed some time to do a recommendation, and I didn't have time to do that, which I thought I should do before we voted, but I wondered if anyone had any initial impressions that they wanted to share at this point.
Actually, I thought there were some, I thought, I did go through all of those reports.
Good for you.
And, I think there are some that stand out.
Okay, great. And we got recommendations for some of them, and we got questions answered from some of them. So we do have information. I just wanted to put that on paper so it was less confusing. Potential to the changes to the zoning code by local law. Okay, so what that was about is that there have been a number of issues brought up while the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee is working about issues that, and actually some of them have come from outside, like things like food trucks or short-term rentals. There have been a number of questions that we really aren't able to answer. A long time ago, New York State, well, 5 or 6 or 8 years ago, New York State actually sent out a request to towns to update their zoning codes to include some of these topics. It included wind energy and solar energy, and the only one that we actually completed was the solar energy section. So the question was, now that we have a comprehensive plan review committee, if the next step should be trying to deal with some of the zoning impacts, both of what they're doing and also areas that we just know are not, either don't exist or people have been having trouble interpreting, whether some of that stuff might make sense to do by local law. So I just wanted to float that with you all because I thought that, a number of things like the food trucks have come up recently that we just don't have anything in the code to address. And so we're kind of doing a what do you call it, a sort of a patch job in terms of trying to figure out how to license food trucks when it really isn't part of the code. So I thought that it would make sense to just, not that anything's ready to go, but just to think about what items maybe should be looked at in the zoning
So
code.
who are you saying should look at this?
Well, I think that we should first of all ask the Comprehensive Review Committee whether
Okay.
there are things that they've found. I think we should revive the list that we got from New York State. And I think then we should just ask the public if there are things that they would like to be looked at. I think what that means is that the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee would have to sign on for a longer term of duty. But I do think then we would need a planner probably to write some of these laws. But I think the first step is figuring out what
we need to address in the first place.
Yeah, what needs to be addressed. And, a number of these things have just come up so recently that it seemed, and I asked Ian how we could do that. And he said that typically it's just writing a local law to cover these things. That's what was done with the solar energy part of the zoning code when that was rewritten. So, again, it's just trying to get an idea of the scope either for the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee to address, and also make a list of things that have come up recently that we don't have a section in the zoning code to deal with. So
I think it's really important to get ahead of these things because I think it's not a good idea to wait until something is in front of us and have to figure out, like, use a Band-Aid or come up with some kind of, thing. I think it's really important. I think that the food truck issue, is potentially an issue. I also think that the short-term rentals is an issue. There are 24 short-term rentals in the town of Amenia, which I think is pretty high. I know a lot of the surrounding communities have already worked on those. Millbrook, Hyde Park are two that I know of that are working on codes to address the situation. So I think that one's an important one.
And the fact that other communities have gotten ahead of us on that actually makes it less expensive to write because there are models out there, so.
There is classwork, and I've taken a couple of the classes, offered through the Association of Towns, which address these subjects head on. So I would suggest to the board members that they look it up and look up some of these subjects to be prepared for these issues.
Great. Okay, the final operation in terms of the acceptance of the charcoal kilns, you had given us a list last time, and I thought both for that and what we're going to tell the planner about the cannabis, that again, we needed, I just thought we should have something, written down and agreed to more clearly. So that's something that you two can do.
Say this again? You started talking about charcoal and then I heard...
And then cannabis. Charcoal and cannabis are a lovely combination.
Okay.
So the charcoal kilns, I mean, we talked about this both last time, and Nicole did some great work in terms of suggesting...
presented their report.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that the supplemental cannabis regulations...
And I submitted the report.
You submitted, yes.
What the recommendations were to put it in.
Right, but I think the report needs to be a little bit more to turn into a resolution. So all I'm saying is that we need to kind of be a little more, a little bit broader in terms of how we do that, which can either be, one of us writing something that is more complete, so Ian doesn't have to make up as much.
Well, it would be the planner that we just hired, right?
Yeah, we hired.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. I don't mean Ian on that. I meant I just thought that in giving a planner that we might want
But that would be the planner's job. That's what we're paying them for to
okay,
do.
so, all right. And did we vote? Did we actually do a resolution last time?
I don't think we voted on,
What
we
we're
voted
gonna
on
say.
having the planner, but I don't think
we
we
voted
voted
to hire the
on
planner.
any supplemental things. I mean, what you're basically saying is to give the planner some kind of a direction on where we want to go. Is that correct?
Right. I mean that, and on the charcoal kilns as well, we're going to need those written up.
So that's
for a
two separate
resolution.
subjects. I think
Okay,
we're
which
getting
do you want to
confused.
start with, Paul?
Well, you had to finalize the acceptance of terms for charcoal kilns.
Okay.
Let's follow that.
Okay. So I actually had a conversation with Betsy Strauss, who happens to be in the audience, of the Amenia Historical Society, about whether they would be willing to take responsibility for that. And in terms of like booking class trips or groups, they were willing to do that.
Okay.
So that was helpful. And I think that you had covered, Nicole, a number of the other issues there. But I feel like in order to make a resolution, we need to just sort of elaborate on that a little bit, so that it's, so that it's in a form that's, that goes through point by
transfer right
point.
into, yeah.
That was
I
basically
think
what it
what
was.
would be helpful is, Nicole, you had circulated like a suggested list
Yeah.
for maintenance. Maybe we recirculate that to the board, and the board can comment on that, and then if the
I
board...
might put it in a better format, though, before I circulate.
So long as there's some sort of confirmation on that, then we can kind of take the next steps in this process.
Okay.
And the same thing for the cannabis. I felt like we had a kind of abbreviated conversation, but we didn't ultimately...
Yeah, but I circulated what we had agreed upon within our group as far as distances from schools or parkland and stuff like that. And at this point, I would think that would be the planner's responsibility now to take those numbers that were circulated and start creating the local zoning law for it.
I don't think we ever really agreed upon those distances. We informally talked about them, but I don't think we actually agreed on them. So I think that you should recirculate that, and we should have further discussion on that.
It sounds like we're going to discuss everything to death at this board, but sure.
I think
We're
just
big on discussing.
getting the regulations in like bullet form of what exactly we want to see.
That should come from the person that we hired and we're paying money for it too. Planner.
I would suggest that the details of where this is going to occur and how that comes about would be something for the planner. If there is locations that the board is suggesting or feeling that they would like to see a retail dispensary, or if there's places where they absolutely don't want to see one, I think that's the type of guidance that might be helpful to the planner. I think if Paul, if you want to take the lead on it, if somebody just engages the planner and kind of gets a conversation, then the planner can start doing their work and come back to the board with something that I think would make sense. Otherwise,
Yeah, sure.
we're chasing our tail.
Good to engage with the planner to start working this out.
Well, that's fine, but I just think that you should still recirculate. just
Well, it's
so
got to be, it's going to
we
have, whatever the planner comes up with is going to have to be
Yeah,
circulated.
but it's supposed, right, but I
For
mean,
all of us
it
to
is
comment on it.
basically, has to come from us in terms of a direction for them, and you have the outline of that, so if you want to turn it over to the planner, that's, I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, I
But
just
we need to
think some
discuss
of
it
those
when it comes
distances
back.
need to be changed.
Say that again?
I think some of those distances need to be changed.
We need this conversation.
Oh, okay, what's going on back there? Yeah, you're not disrupting the classroom again, are you?
We're saying, you know.
Important stuff, I know. Okay, so
So
do you
I'll reach out to the planner and talk to her and give her what I have, and then she can circulate that type of.
Or are you saying, is that okay? And
that's
we
fine.
can deal with it from there?
Yeah,
Okay.
many of the distances that were set forth in there are already set forth in state code, so,
Yeah, I mean, there's not
so some
much
of them are
for us.
already laid out. Whether you want to regulate further on that's a different issue, but I think until we get something to present to the board, we're not getting anywhere, so.
There's not much for us to regulate. I mean, this is a very regulated industry at the state level. There's not much for us to add to it.
Well, actually, there is, because we got an email from a member of the community who has a license and has a farm, and he wanted somewhere in there that there be, in the code, that there be, that they could sell it on their property. And that email had circulated.
But that's already allowed within the New York State laws, that any grow facility that has received a license is allowed to sell their cannabis on site. That's in the New York State law that I circulated to everybody.
Well, the only issue there is that if we're concerned about where it might be downtown, if it's on someone's farm, it sort of spreads the net pretty widely in terms of potential locations.
They, according to New York State law, they're allowed up to locate their store within 25 miles of their operation.
But
That's
does the
in
town still have a say?
I think that email that was sent to the board, that's a perfect example of something that could be sent to the planner, and then they could present that back to the board.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because that wasn't an issue that I had contemplated before, just in terms of having farm stands.
Yeah, no, it's so, I circulated the New York State law that said that to everybody, that they're allowed to open their own farm stand, basically. That's part of the New York State law.
Okay. Okay, well, I think then we can probably get the planner started, and we'll...
Yeah, sure, I'll reach out to the planner.
Okay, great. So, let's see.
When the planner comes back with a report and stuff, there still has to be a public hearing, correct?
Yeah, I think there has to be a public
Yeah,
hearing.
this is all preliminary
a low
drafting.
law.
Yeah, this is, you're a long way from having the law yet.
So when she sends back, a preliminary thing, then we'll have a conversation about that when there's something on paper. Okay. The next thing was just about, we talked a few weeks ago, I think, about the need for a part-time building inspector, and someone actually appeared outside my office and expressed interest in that. Well, actually, they were outside Dawn's office, and she sent them up. But in any event, but they were interested in working 20 hours a week, and none of the other candidates that we spoke to, well, there was only one actually that actually came in for an interview, but only wanted full-time, which I think is kind of more, which is sort of a cost that we may not want to take on. So I just wanted to see if you were interested in interviewing the candidate that recently appeared.
That's the only candidate we got. We should interview.
I am, but I think we need to have the discussion if we're going to pay for this person to get certified and do all that we have a contract signed.
Right. Because I
think that's more information that should be shared.
Well, we can do that in an executive
Yeah,
session, in other words.
I think the discussion should be whether or not the board would like to pursue the interview.
Interview?
Yeah.
Sure.
The answer, yeah. So
So all the
yes.
details, like Mike Singleton called me, that should be done in
Yeah.
executive session?
Yes, as part of the interview.
Okay. All right, so then, in general, it seems like we want to have an interview. There's no rush on the interview because this person wanted to start in the fall, but, which actually I think works out well from our end too, but we'll talk about it further in executive session. And this is, you know, like my thought, but I realize since we have a lawsuit about Westerly Ridge, that maybe we should clarify what actually can be done in a scenic protection overlay, because I wouldn't like to get sued again, and it's not very specific in our code. So maybe between now and our next meeting, we can all take a look at how that's written and just see whether that's something we think we should tighten up.
Okay.
And first resolution. Okay, the climate plan actually was ahead of the other one. Do you want to read this, Paul?
No, not at all.
Oh, all right. I can read it then. Whereas the town of Amenia pledged to take, well, this is resolution number 76. How about that?
So good.
Okay, number 76. Whereas the town of Amenia pledged to take part in the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's Climate Smart Communities Certification Program, with pledges including reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and whereas the Climate Smart Task Force, comprised of municipal officials and environmental volunteer community leaders, collaborated with the Hudson Valley Regional Council in the development of the GoCap, reviewed drafts, and provided valuable feedback on iterations that resulted in the final draft. And there we go. Whereas the task force presented a draft GoCap to the Town of Amenia Town Board and the public at the June 20th, 2024 Town Board meeting, and it's also on the website. Now therefore it be resolved as follows. 1, the recitations set forth above are incorporated in this resolution as if fully set forth and adopted herein. 2, the Town of Amenia Town Board hereby adopts the GoCap, a copy of which is annexed hereto and made a part hereof. And 3, the Town of Amenia Town Board hereby authorizes the submission of the GoCap to the New York State DEC Office for Climate Change for consideration of points towards Climate Smart Communities certification for the Town of Amenia. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Discussion, please.
Sure.
I just want to kind of point out, we just had this conversation about more and more information about as far as the cannabis aspect is. This is something that was just presented to the community tonight, and now we have a resolution in front of us an hour later to vote on. I'm a big supporter of protecting the climate. You know, I'm the guy that filed a report there with DEC concerning R&R whenever they were polluting our stream down there. And I see a lot of great things in here. I am concerned, and I hope CAC will reach out to the highway department and figure out a little better on the technology that's available to them and in the coming future as far as electrical vehicles. We're just not there yet on electric vehicles, and the machinery and equipment that is ran by the highway department, they're years and years away. I don't know if it's feasible to us to be all electric by 2050. But
That is a long time, you know.
it's only 25 years away. It's right around the corner. It's a lot closer than we. It's a lot closer than we
But
think.
it's not like the technology is not going to change in 20.
Yeah, in 20 years,
25 years.
the technology is going to change. But I do also remember in the 80s, we thought we were going to be living Jetson by now, and we're not.
I know, that is disappointing.
That, you know, that's just the point. But the main thing is, I wish we would have had more time to study this climate action plan before we voted on it.
Yeah, it was posted on the website, but it wasn't sent out individually.
Right, it wasn't sent out individually, and everybody,
Until the
not all of us get time to go on the website on a daily basis.
I know.
All right, so that's the only point I wanted to make. That's it.
Okay.
Well, I'll make the point that this is just a scope of plan, an action plan for them to really, they really need this so that we can get bronze.
Mhm.
That's what this was about.
Yeah.
I just wish there would have been more time to study it, that's all.
Well,
All right, so let's have a vote.
I guess we take a
Supervisor
vote then. Yes.
Council members Reblard,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Winters,
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Wow, okay. All right, great. The next one is the gym floor, and let me find the version of that Ian, yeah, but you have to read the one that Ian handed me because he marked it up
He marked it up. and
to
this is,
separate
seven-
the wood floor and the poured floor.
And then you get it next, and this is 77?
No, she.
That's 77,
Lee
right?
has the right one.
77.
So just read slowly.
Awarding contract for Town Hall Gymnasium floor replacement. Whereas the Town of Amenia Town Board is seeking to replace the Town Hall Gymnasium floor, and whereas the Town of Amenia pursuant to the town's procurement policy obtained proposals from qualified companies for the replacement of the Town Hall Gymnasium floor, and whereas the floor proposals were received, a copy of the summary of responses is annexed here too and made a part of hereof, and whereas the Town of Amenia Town Board has reviewed the proposals and determined that Gugalito Associates Incorporated, GAI, submitted the lowest responsible bid that recommends the town board award the contract for the replacement of Town Hall Gymnasium floor to GAI in the amount of $17,308 to refinish the original floor, or in the alternative, $41,500 to install a Herculean floor, whereas pursuant to 9 NYCRR Part 61.7.5 C1, the maintenance or repair involving no substantial changes in the existing structure is deemed a Type 2 action under the state and SEQA, and therefore is subject not to under SEQA. And now therefore it be resolved as follows. The recitations set forth above are incorporated in the resolution that's fully set and adopted herein. The town board has determined this is a Type 2 action under SEQA, and therefore not subject to review under SEQA. The town board of Amenia hereby awards a contract for the replacement of Town Hall Gymnasium floor to GIA, $17,308 to refinish the original floor, or the alternative, $41,500 to install a Herculean floor. The town board of Town of Amenia hereby authorizes and directs the payment of such replacement from the building and CE maintenance budget line number 16204-01 in the amount of $19,005 from the summer rec program.
That was the canceled summer camp.
Summer camp, so the original agreement with Recreation was that they were to vote and authorize those kind of expenditures before the town board voted to spend any of their money. That was made last year. Has that happened?
I'm sorry, was there a resolution, Ian? I mean, ask Ian, because I don't.
I thought that was part of the bylaws.
I didn't select the budget lines.
I thought that was part of the
So-
bylaws last year that was created?
No, it was about the bylaws.
What's the, well,
The bylaws for the Amenia Recreation last year, that before any money was spent from their budget? And budget line number 71451-01 in the amount of $22,000 in accordance with the proposal annexed here too. The town board, Town of Amenia hereby authorized supervisor to execute the contract after reviewed by the attorney to the town in accordance with the annex proposal.
Okay. Are you looking?
I'm looking.
While you're looking
I
for
don't-
that, could I
I
just
don't
make
know
a
the-
comment on that? When I was signing vouchers, I was talking to somebody who said, so the rec money is in the general fund. It's not a separate fund, it's part of the general fund, and that the town board has the authority to move funds around. That's what I was told, just letting you know.
That's not our understanding. Once the money is provided to the Recreation Commission, it is our fund.
You gotta go to
Oh, you have to go to the.
You gotta go.
I don't have the bylaws in front of me, but in general terms, the rec commission would come before the board with a budget. That budget would be approved by the board,
Yes.
okay? And then the rec commission there had, from there forward, has authority to spend out of that budget within the budgetary constraints. They still have to follow procurement policies, and if there's any capital projects, they would have to come to the board, and there would be an agreement between the two for that. But for the basic charge to maintain, operate, and investigate recreation activities within the town, they have a budgetary confines that they would have to work with, which are essentially approved by the board during the budgetary process.
My understanding is that is the definition difference between a committee and the commission.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
that's
so
my,
what-
that's
the
my
commi-
understanding as well as how this works.
Right, the commission has control of their budget once the town board approves their budget. The town board is not allowed to just take money from the commission.
So what you're saying is then we need to table this until we get something from the rec commission. My point is, I hope they would accept that, since it is used almost exclusively by rec activities.
Yeah, but this was not driven by rec in any form or fashion, that I know.
There are protocols to follow, is what Paul's saying.
Okay. No, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. I don't have a problem with that.
Yep.
I think that we can wait another 2 weeks to,
Sure.
to move ahead with this. I've asked Ian about this, that the whole issue with the septic, for instance, we haven't drawn a clear line between what rec is responsible for and what the town is responsible for.
I don't disagree
And
with
I
that.
just think because it's exactly this situation, I just think we need to, we need to figure that out.
But so
Because it's not written down anymore.
But this is kind of different than, I agree that sewer thing needs to be done, but I do know that whenever I got on the rec commission 3 years ago, the biggest complaint from the rec commission was that the town board was moving the money from the recreation department without their approval.
Right, and I remember Victoria, I was at the meeting.
Right,
Victoria
right.
did
So
that, and
we
they were
got
told,
those
well,
bylaws passed, and it's my understanding that those bylaws says that in order for the town board to move money from the rec department, that
Okay.
the rec department needs to also agree with that.
Okay, well, I remember that. So Ian, will you just, I'm sorry, will you just go back to the bylaws and confirm that? And we need to.
I've gone through the bylaws, and the bylaws are pretty clear as to what I had just previously indicated.
then we just
Capital
need-
projects, things like capital projects, that would have to be, that would be run by the town board in conjunction with the commission. So the commission for a capital project would have to come to town board would have authority over that. So depending on the type of project is what's going to dictate how your monies are being spent. So as I said, capital projects, town board needs to be involved.
My question is, this has been in the works for a while. If summer camp took off, where was the money coming from?
We actually have applied for a grant, so some of this money may be able to move around afterwards. And we would have just had to wait for the grant to come through. The grant writer actually said she's been talking to some people about it because the number is not, colossal for some of our the grant people.
Aren't grants project specific generally?
Specific?
Yeah, to a project.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, she was looking to secure a grant that would be specific to paying for a portion of the gym floor replacement.
Okay.
So we'll table this for now?
Yeah, I think we should table this till the next meeting.
Who's making that motion? I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to table.
I'll second the motion to table.
Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Councilmembers Winters?
Yes.
Redlar?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Okay, great.
You tabled it.
Authorizing change order. Oh, I'm sorry, does someone else want to read this? This would be 78. 78.
Well, then
Anyone want to do that? What?
I'm sorry. As I was writing that down, I'm sorry, I was writing it and I wasn't paying attention, but when I asked who's going to table it, what's the date that we're tabling it to?
What meeting?
You actually have to give me a date to when you're tabling it to.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Always
Do you want it
a
to
Do you want
surprise.
to go 2 meetings out or 1 meeting
It
out?
needs to go 2 meetings out because the rec
Because they
department
meet,
has their next
they're going to
meeting.
meet after July 1.
Okay.
Right. So July 20th is the next?
The second meeting in July 18.
Yeah, 7/20.
July 8th. Okay,
July 18th.
great, thank you.
Oh, look, oh, you have a calendar.
I got the calendar.
All right.
Resolution 78,
70,
18th, right?
78,
78, right.
authorizing change order to Labella Engineering Services agreement regarding feasibility study for a highway garage and salt storage facility. Whereas by resolution number 54 of 2022, adopted by the town board on July 21st, 2022, the town board awarded a contract for engineering services for a feasibility study for a highway garage and salt storage facility in the amount of $19,000. And whereas additional services had to be performed in order to complete the SECRA, review in a timely manner in order to meet certain grant deadlines, and whereas by contract modification short form dated May 14, 2024, Labella has submitted a change order for consideration in the amount of $5,000. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. The recitations set forth above are incorporated in this resolution as if fully set forth and adopted herein. The town board hereby authorizes a change order for the additional services in connection with the feasibility study for the highway garage and salt storage facility in the amount of $5,000, increasing the total contract amount from $19,000 to $24,000. The town supervisor is hereby authorized to execute the change order in the amount of $5,000, subject to final review and approval by, of the town attorney to the town.
And that would presumably come from the engineering line. Did you hear that?
No, I'm
That
sorry.
would presumably come from the engineering line, the additional fee for the garage engineer?
Yeah, it come from the same line from the original,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right, okay,
from the original resolution approving the contract, come from the same exact line.
okay. Did you make that motion? I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Supervisor Blackman?
Yes?
Councilmembers Rebelard?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Winters?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Okay. The neg deck.
Adopt resolution number, what is this, 78?
79.
Nicole might want to read.
Oh, sure, she can read it.
Do you want to read, Nicole?
79? Are we?
Yeah.
79?
Just want to, spread the load as it were.
Yeah, there you go.
Even though I do have water this time.
Adopting negative declaration with respect to the town highway garage and salt storage facility project, whereas the town of Amenia is proposing the construction of a new town highway garage and salt storage facility to replace the town's existing aging inadequate garage facility, and whereas the project is proposed on a vacant 5-acre lot located on the east side of New York State Route 22, approximately 2,200 feet south of Sin Patch Road, and whereas the Town of Amenia Town Board plans to seek funding for the project from potential funding sources including, but not limited to, the American Rescue Plan Act, Community Development Block Grant, and Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program. And whereas pursuant to Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law, Part 617, commonly known as SECRA, the Town Board conducted an environmental review of the project, and whereas the Town Board, by resolution number 79?
55.
Oh, 55 of 2024 has determined that the proposed project is an unlisted action under SECRA and declared its intention to act as lead agency for review under SECRA for this project. And whereas each involved interested agency was notified by letter of the town's intent to act as lead agency and were provided with Part 1 of the full environmental assessment form. And whereas no other agency has requested in writing to act as lead agency, and whereas LaBella Associates was retained to prepare Parts 1, 2, and 3 of the FEIF with an accompanying narrative, which the town board has reviewed, a copy of Parts 1, 2, and 3 of the FEIF are annexed here to and made a part hereof. Now therefore be it resolved as follows: the recitations above set forth are incorporated in this resolution as if fully set forth and adopted herein. 2, the town board is hereby the lead agency for the SECRA process. The town board has determined that the proposed action is an unlisted action pursuant to Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law, Part 617, SECRA, for which a FEIF has been prepared, a copy of which is annexed hereto. The town board hereby finds and determines that A, it has considered the proposed action, reviewed all parts of the FEIF, reviewed the criteria set forth in 6 NYCRR Section 617.7C, thoroughly analyzed the relevant areas of potential environmental concern, and has duly considered all of the potential environmental impacts and their magnitude in connection with proposed action. And B, the project will not result in any large and or important environmental impacts and therefore will not have a significant adverse impact on the environment. And C, the reasons supporting this determination are set forth on the attached determination of non-significance with respect to this project. And D, the town board of the town of Amenia hereby adopts a negative declaration pursuant to 6 NYCRR Section 617.7 with respect to the proposed action. And the town board hereby authorizes the town supervisor to sign the negative declaration and determination of non-significance with respect to the project. The town board hereby directs the town clerk to publish a notice in the environmental notices bulletin. The town board hereby directs the town clerk to file a copy of the negative declaration and determination of non-significance in the records of the town. This resolution shall take effect immediately. I'll make that motion.
I'll second, and thank you for reading that, Nicole. That was much
That was a
longer
big
than I
one.
expected it to be. I thought that was going to be easy.
Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Revillard?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Winters?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Okay. Where is the other one? Do you have a copy of the?
80. Yep, right there.
You have
want to read it?
No, you can read it. I just didn't. see it
Resolution
in my
number 80
packet.
of 2024, authorized submission of grant application for the immediate town, no one has it.
I brought it in.
She
brought
has
it in.
one.
Do you want it?
I don't know, I didn't have one, I got
Oh,
this
I thought that was what you were.
Yeah, I have it.
Oh, okay.
Authorize the submission of grant application for the Amenia Town Green Project, whereas the Town Board of the Town of Amenia, on behalf of the Town of Amenia Recreation Commission, by resolution number 73 of 2022, awarded the contract to Dodona Contract Landscape Architects, DALA, to complete a master plan in support of various site improvements for Amenia Town Green and Wassaic Park Master Plan, and whereas the master plan has been submitted and approved by the Town Board by resolution number 71 of 2024, and whereas in order to fund the Amenia Greentown project in accordance with the master plan, the Town of Amenia Recreation Commission is seeking to submit a grant application to the Environmental Protection Fund Grant Program for Parks Preservation and Heritage, which is matching grant program for acquisition, planning, development, and improvement of parks, historic properties, and heritage areas located within the physical boundaries of the state of New York. And whereas submission of the grant application is a Type 2 action under the State Environmental Review Act and therefore not subject to review under SECRA, now therefore it be resolved as follows. The recitations set forth above are incorporated in this resolution as is fully set forth and adopted therein. The Town Board of Town of Amenia has determined that this Type 2 action under SECRA and therefore not subject to review under SECRA. The Town Board, Town of Amenia hereby authorizes submission of application for a grant under the Environmental Protection Grant Programs for Parks and Preservation and Heritage, EPF, as well as any and all other documentation necessary for the grant application. Any grants received will be deposited in the state aid and/other cultural rec budget line number 3889-01 to be allocated in accordance with the terms of the grant and this resolution. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have questions.
Okay.
How long does the project have to be completed? How long do you have?
5 years.
5 years,
From
okay.
from the time of the submission of the grant, you have up to 5 years to complete the project.
And where is the upfront money coming from?
I'm sorry?
The upfront money? I mean, this is reimbursable grant, so we have to put the money out, so where does
Yeah,
that come
it's just
from?
like any other town project, we would have to take a bond on it.
See, I have a problem with taking a bond out when we're trying to get a bond for the town garage, which I think has to be our number one priority.
Okay.
And the other thing, and I actually have to agree with that gentleman there. The fact of the matter is, we have, our population has actually decreased. In 2020, we had a population of 3,700. In 2010, we had 4,400, right? Weepuck School is creating a pickleball court, tennis court, a basketball court, and they have a full track. We have Beekman Park that needs work, and they're not even mentioned in the master plan. We have the Wassaic Park, and we have issues tonight. I mean, every time we come to a meeting, we're getting bombarded with, I feel like we're bleeding money. We have, the water has issues, we have, the wastewater has issues, we have all of these things, and it's just my own thought. To me, this is like kind of irresponsible to move forward with this at a time when we have so many other needs. And we don't even have, we don't really have any rec programs that are even going to use this park at this point.
And I just wanted to say that I was cleaning out my office today. I know, that's sort of shocking right there. But I found the 2006 Recreation Master Plan. And what was interesting to me is how much time was put into figuring out what the population of Amenia was, what the needs were, doing surveys, there's just an enormous amount of information put on paper in terms of what's needed. They looked at the whole town. I just feel like, the more I've thought about this, the more wrong it seems. I'm sorry, but because I was the liaison to the rec committee, and I really like the people, and they worked very hard on this. But I just think it's a mistake. I mean, even if it costs nothing, it seems to me that we're not getting enough out of it. I mean, in the way of new recreational opportunities. And I just think it's an enormous amount of money, and there's an enormous amount of need for things in Amenia that this sum could provide. I mean, it's a lot of money, and there's a lot to be done at Beekman Park, and I just feel like it's not fiscally responsible to move ahead with this. So we can vote.
Well, I'd like to say something first.
What?
I would like to say something
please.
before we vote, if I could. But Leo, in the previous meeting, you had suggested that the land be preserved for affordable housing, which I just can't wrap my head around because the entire piece is primarily in a floodplain. So I don't know why. I guess my point is, people are looking at the use of this land. And I think the whole concept of preserving this land for public use as it is, whether there be a gazebo, a stage, a splash park, whatever. I particularly like to see a seniors walking track, rubberized track. That's always been my dream. For using this land for what it has always been used for. And we have the charge of possibly making this accessible to all those in the future versus building houses there.
Okay, well, again, I'm just, there are 5 walking tracks existing or there will be when the Wassaic one happens. There are 5 existing walking tracks. I think the idea of giving up the land for that is kind of criminal. I mean, I just, they're out there. We're not, by creating a new walking track, we're just duplicating something we have.
I don't think being short-sighted right now is important.
Explain that? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Well, it was just a suggestion, and the goal here is to preserve the land for public use as it is. Now, if you want not to have a track there, I respect that.
Well, thank you, but unfortunately, we've already approved going ahead with architectural drawings for stuff that there's been clear opposition to, and the plan hasn't moved one iota. So I'm a little nervous even about moving ahead with the expectation that some things could change, because that has absolutely not happened so far.
The only opposition has come from you two. I have not seen a single email from anyone in the community that's against this plan.
You don't hear
It's against the overall plan.
Nobody has a problem with the plan, it's the timing. So
I have a problem with the plan.
Well, I don't have a problem with the plan. I have a problem with the timing when we have so many other things going on. I have senior citizens coming to me and saying, how much is this going to cost us? Right? And you keep saying it's not going to cost the taxpayers any money, but you can never say it's not going to cost the taxpayers any money. That's just a fact. Everything costs money. The upkeep on this is going to be, I've talked to people with splash pads. They're extremely expensive. The maintenance, the upkeep, the chemicals, all of that is expensive. And so, when we're talking about these things, these are people that, and again, they're not against the plan. They're just really nervous about how much it's going to cost and whether or not they're going to be able to afford to stay here. So again, I'm not against the plan. I'm just against doing it all at once. If you want to put a gazebo out there, that's fine. If you want to put a walking path out there, I can deal with that.
So the whole point of this, and I'm sure that if you guys remember and look back, Jane Dodona made it very clear. This is step 2 of a 10-point phase design, right? Design phase. If we don't even go out and apply for the grant and see how much money we can get, we don't even know how much we can build. So yes, we have presented an overall master idea of what we want to do out there, but unless we apply for the grant, we don't even know how much we can get the money to build. Maybe we only have enough money to fix the field and put the gazebo up, or maybe we get enough money to also include the walking track and include the water thing, and maybe eventually at the very end we can fix the parking. But unless we apply for the grant, we don't even have an idea of what we can do.
Paul, I guess my problem is that you've never taken this apart and looked at what's really important to what's going to have the biggest impact on people. This has always been, take it or leave it with this whole project.
You say me specifically. There's a whole rec commission that has been working on this plan for over 3 years. It's not just me. It's me. It was me and all these other people, and they have created their own plan. You guys keep focusing this all on me, and I'm just trying to drive what they're doing.
Okay, but I was watching it for 2 years.
Yeah, please.
Sure, go ahead.
We've developed a master plan, right, which is the full vision of what can be done. And taking the next step, which is to get the necessary design drawings so that you can apply for funding. When you get the funding, you can then prioritize which elements of the plan you want to move forward with. There's no all or nothing to this. It's you get the money, you come back, you revisit, you prioritize, you can survey the community again at that point in time to see.
I'm sorry, survey the community, not again. I mean, the community hasn't been surveyed.
We have gotten public feedback twice. How much public feedback have you gotten on using the potential parking lot for a couple of units of housing?
A couple of units of housing, that's incorrect anyway, but there's been a lot of, no, the housing, hey, Peter, the housing board has done a mail survey. They've done how many public presentations? 5, I think.
I don't think anybody's questioning the need for affordable housing. I'm asking specifically about the plans. By the way, I had a park down there today because there was no parking up here. So, come on.
No, my point is that you should have prioritized things in a way that you could have afforded to build them right away.
We still can, that's my point. This is a master plan. This is an entire vision. It is elements within it that can be changed, swapped out, but you can't do anything unless you can create the design to move forward and apply for grants so that you can get funding so you don't burden the taxpayer. That's all we're asking for here.
Understood.
You don't lose any flexibility whatsoever.
Right.
I don't understand.
Because it's not typically the way that this process works. I mean, I've done enough school master plans where I know that if it go, that they have to pick and choose based even on schematic design about how much money they have and what's the highest priority for their needs. And that is not part of this. And it just has, the more I think about it, the more upset I get because it just seems like this doesn't seem to me the most important part of Jane Dodona's plan even, but you haven't moved ahead with like the playground in Wassaic. I just...
No.
Sorry?
We can't.
We have approved the plan for Wassaic, but there's some open items on the plan for Wassaic.
What's that?
I think we need to vote. I think we need to
And
vote.
oh, by the way, there's projects going on in Beekman for people that were thinking that somehow there were no projects going on in Beekman. We have projects going on in Beekman as well.
Peter, thank you for coming up and clarifying some of these things because a lot of this hasn't been clarified, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
And being that we know that this grant is only for $675,000, it's not going to, we know it's not going to cover the whole project. So who's to say that they're not going to go for the grant and just say, hey, you know what we got with this, we want to just do the pavilion. Either way, no matter what we do there, it's going to come, like the grants that they're going to be able to go for, unfortunately, Leo, are going to be park grants because that's what it already is.
I think it's important to note that if we want to do nothing and keep the status quo here, we can vote to do that. Or if you want to have the ability to do something in the future, we're not asking to do it, we're asking to get the funding to see if we can do it. That's what I believe this is about.
No, you already have-
The final thing is, we've already voted yes on all the other resolutions concerning this, and to not complete this one little part, the fifth part out of the other, there was 5 parts to this resolution, all these different resolutions, we voted to approve the other 4. And now we're gonna say no, we said, yes, you can do this, yes, you can do that, yes, you can spend money, yes, you can sign the contract, but no, you can't go for a grant.
Okay.
It
was a very clear line to me between getting information to take a next step and actually applying for money to build a next step, because that's different. Design is one thing and building is
have to
another.
accept, we still have to
really
accept
vote-
the grant.
Take the vote. and-
Okay, we can take a vote.
Yeah, we're never gonna get anywhere
Supervisor
with this.
Blackman?
No.
Council members Rebellard,
Yes.
Ham,
No.
Winters,
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Okay, is that our last resolution?
No.
Passes.
It is?
Oh, we have another
You
one?
have to do the transfer of funds.
The what?
Oh, the transfer of funds, okay.
I didn't see
You
that
paid
one.
the bills. You gotta
You have
transfer
that
those.
Yeah, hold on.
I don't see it.
Dawn, what number is this one?
81.
I think it's this.
I don't see the
It's
transfer.
under other matters. It's in your folder.
Oh, it's in a
Other
folder,
matters.
it's a separate folder under matters.
That's like, do that away.
Okay. Rosanna, do you want to do this?
I don't have that. one.
Okay, then I'll,
All right, I'll do it.
I got it.
okay,
All
Rosanna's
right,
doing it.
whereas the town board has the authority to transfer funds when necessary or unanticipated to amend the budget, and whereas budget amendment in the general fund increasing $2,260.01, public safety services, and by $884.64, and an increase of $30,204.01, the Public Safety Commission services by $884.64 for the DC Sheriff Services for Congregation Beth David, whereas budget amendment in the general fund increasing $83,104, increasing 83,000, there's too many.
No, oh, that's just the line. That's just
Okay,
describing the line.
increasing 83104.06.080, administration CE unallocated by $12.04, and decrease 83404.06, transmission distribution by $12.04 for insurance cost coverage. Whereas budget amendment in the general fund increasing 231.01.000.200, cash and time deposit, special reserves, community kitchen by $28,238.40, and decrease 201.01.000.200, cash and time deposits, community kitchen by $28,238.40 for reclassification by State Controller's Office, whereas budget amendment in the general fund increasing 870.01.000.200, general reserve, community kitchen by $28,214.58, and decrease 899.01. Other restricted fund balance, community kitchen by $28,214.58 for reclassification by State Controller's Office. Whereas budget amendment in the general fund increasing 2089.01.148, other cultural and rec senior trip event fees by $1,258, and increase 67724.01.14, programs for the aging CE senior trip events by $1,258 for the senior trip event. Now therefore be resolved that the town board authorizes the transfer of necessary budget lines to process these transactions. I make that motion.
I'll second it.
I have a discussion. Ian, do you know what the, why the kitchen, community kitchen appears twice with very similar numbers, but not the same
I didn't
numbers?
draft this resolution.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
And I have no idea anything about this resolution.
Yeah, no, I was wondering the same thing what that's all about.
It just seems odd, but,
It does seem very odd, right?
I mean, some of it is, it seems like the first one is moving stuff around because the controller's office wanted it listed differently, but why would it be?
Well, it's the same,
both of them,
it's,
yeah.
it's the same thing for both of them.
Yeah, I don't really understand that.
And they're both for the kitchen.
They're different dollar amounts.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, it's funny because they're very close.
I don't think you should pass that. I'm not entirely sure.
So who requested this resolution be drawn up?
Your bookkeeper.
The bookkeeper.
Oh, this came from the bookkeeper?
Came directly from the bookkeeper, sent it to the supervisor, and had it put on letterhead.
Yeah.
And this is from Denise.
It doesn't make sense.
Oh, from Denise.
Well, the reclassification, how else would Marge come up with it unless these are, because it's a reclassification of a line. You're taking one money, the line in one money and just moving it into another for the reclassification per the state comptrollers. They renumbered it.
So the state,
It's 231 and I changed it to 201. They just changed it to a 200.
But we have money for the kitchen, community kitchen in 2 separate accounts?
well,
Oh, do you guys
It's
have your, do you
unclear,
guys
I
have your
guess.
budget sheets?
No. It's 9:30 tonight, I'm not asking any more questions.
Supervisor Blackman?
do you think we should table it? or
I
do
think
you-
we should table it till we have a better understanding.
If
So
the
then
board,
you approve
has a
tonight's
question on it,
Wait, yeah.
if the board has a question on it, or the board is unsure about what it is, my recommendation would to not be voting on something that you're unsure of. So you're not forced to vote on this, you can table it
But
and
they
get more
have to
information.
also then be advised, and not to be disrespectful, but they paid the bills tonight, so you have bills in here, so you can amend it, striking maybe the
Kitchen.
third, fourth, and fifth whereases, because you're gonna have to pay the bills to which they've already authorized the
So if some of these
supervisor.
are being transferred in order to pay bills, again, I'm not part of this aspect of this, so
I would ask that we strike where is budget amendment concerning the kitchen on both of them, and then we pay the bills on the rest of them.
Well, I think nothing's going on with the kitchen at this point. That's just a matter of where it's being held. So without an explanation, I'm fine with that. Do
So is there a
people have
motion to
feeling
take-
about that?
I
Is there
don't
a
know why we
motion to
can't go
amend?
forward with this as it stands in striking the one aspect of the kitchen.
Just so we have a better understanding of why we
No, we
have-
should not vote on that, yeah, that one.
Yeah, so
part.
that's all we're doing.
Right,
Yeah.
just to get
We're
that
we're
clarified.
gonna take those 2 things out and vote
Yeah.
on the rest of them.
Exactly.
So is there
So
a
is it-
motion to amend?
I was just trying to clarify which
They're gonna make a
whereases.
motion to amend this resolution.
Yep, to
We're
strike
gonna be striking out these 2
Fourth and fifth,
paragraphs.
the fourth and fifth whereases.
Right.
Yes. I'll motion that.
Amendment.
I'll second it.
Rosanna, gonna take, okay, so on the amendment, Supervisor Blackman,
Yes.
Councilmembers Rebler?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Winters?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
And then returning back to the resolution for the transfer of funds, it was originally motioned by Rosanna, seconded by Paul. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Councilmembers Rebler?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Winters?
Yes.
And Ahern?
Yes.
See, we can agree on some stuff.
We agree on a lot of stuff.
It was just a basic reclassification vote.
But if they don't, if they're not.
If they don't understand it, they can, no, absolutely, there's a class on it.
Goodness gracious.
All right, so anyone have other matters?
I actually just have one comment I'd like to make. The planning board, I thought, did a great job for their first televised meeting. There were a few issues. We need to have another table, which I'm assuming we'll have by Wednesday. And the other thing is, it was mentioned that perhaps, since these big projects are coming down the pipe, that maybe we should televise the rec commission meetings.
Wow.
Who?
They'd have to meet in here.
People ask me about that, you know, because they don't come, they want to see them televised because there's so much money being involved now with all these projects.
There's a
And
lot
so-
of money
and-
involved.
And somebody else, you know, just want to make sure that they are kept up on that.
So my comment to that. I'm sorry.
I'm just telling you that we should really consider that. I mean, for transparency purposes, we want to be transparent in everything, so.
Well, my first suggestion would be people to actually show up to the rec commission meetings. I was there for years, and the only person that did show up on a weekly or monthly basis was you. No one else from the community showed up. Everyone has the time to come at least maybe 3 or 4 times a year to see what's going on, but no one ever shows up.
Well, that's true of every meeting,
Yeah,
right?
that's on a lot
That's
of
what I'm
meetings.
I mean, I appreciate the regulars, I have to say, thank you all. But I mean, that is.
It is true of every meeting, but we did go ahead and do the zoning board.
So
And so-
I wanted to get back to one thing with Mr. Dan Brown, right? Mr. Dan Brown met me here tonight at 6:30, and he had the drawings from 37 years ago that he created for the concession stand. So he provided those to me because he read in the paper a couple weeks ago that we discussed here, and then the Millerton News printed in the paper that we did not have those drawings. So to me, that goes to show that the community has been paying attention. The community knows what's going on. If we are the type of community that if we have something to complain about, we reach out. If we have something important to add to the conversation, as Mr. Brown did, we reach out. If things are just kind of going along and we don't have a problem with it, we don't have much to say. That's just who we are. That's how we act.
So what is your objection to being televised?
I'm sorry?
What is your objection to being televised?
It just costs more money to the town, right? I mean, how much more are we going to pay?
But it's
I don't have
Yeah,
a
because
problem.
are you gonna televise the water and the wastewater?
I mean, yeah, where do we stop?
Well, they're not, well, if they're really important issues, then yes, I think we should. So when the wastewater thing really comes to a point where it's moving forward, then yes, I think they should be televised.
Okay.
People need to be informed.
I think we saw.
Yeah, sure. No, I don't have a problem with considering that. I'm just saying, where do we stop? I mean, it's a cost that we have, right? And you're always talking about costs.
Well, transparency is huge. It really is really big in this town.
So we
The only
did
comment I
see an
have
example,
about-
I'm sorry, we did see an example of it tonight when Pete spoke and to clarify some issues that were discussed at the board. So I think having them televised might inform people more. I think it's a good idea.
Well, why don't you just raise that with the rec commission and see what the response, oh, I'm sorry.
There she is.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
I'll mention it.
Oh, right, I've spent too many years with you in that seat, I'm sorry.
The planning board, the only recommendation I have is that I couldn't hear Nina a lot because they kept pushing off their mics and on their mics every time they'd speak. If they would just leave them on and just be quiet like we do.
Absolutely wrong. You were wrong.
Oh,
That's
because I didn't hear Nina at all because her mic was always off, and like I'd see people having to reach over and turn them on.
Yeah, like I told them, that's when they work the best. With all of them on, they're trying to cancel each other. That
Okay.
planning board was crystal clear in all directions.
When they
I've
had them on.
a lot of input from people who said they liked that they could hear it. If we did the same thing here, you would be better heard. If you cut your microphone.
Right, but the problem was
one
they
at a
weren't putting them
time.
back on when they talked. Nina was
They were
talking.
putting it back on. Some of them, they were away because we only had 7 microphones and 10 people. It was a little difficult.
Right, but I understand that. But there was a lot of times where nobody had their mic on.
No, I disagree with you
And-
on that. I don't know where you're coming from there.
Well,
Nina was,
I mean,
didn't have her mic on.
Mike, you had said that you thought we should stick with 7 microphones, and you just said, but there were only 7 microphones and 10 people. So what is the solution there?
I didn't say that because we need more microphones. What I told you is right. It's just, she pointed out, some people couldn't be heard because some of them didn't get close to the microphone. In the center, we had people sitting that sometimes didn't get there. But if you go back and you listen to that whole thing and you watch it carefully, you'll find that the audio is much cleaner than what it is on this meeting. It
Okay,
really
well,
is. I mean, go and look at it. It's
I
out
watched
there.
it live.
Yeah, well, go look at the rebroadcast on it. Watch it again.
I'm not arguing that you couldn't hear them when their mic was on. My point is the mic wasn't on when people were talking.
So maybe they just need to be reminded, Mike,
Well,
that they have to, remember to like turn it on when they're
All right,
not.
well-
Because that's not the way, I mean, Mike, this is their first time.
I know, they
Yeah.
did a damn good job too, and I sent
Right.
out to them.
But I mean, maybe they need to be reminded that they just need to turn their, if they're turning them off, to turn them back
a lot of
on.
times too, so.
What?
So does this board a lot of times too.
I'm sorry, does what?
Remind you to speak in your microphone.
You do have to remind us often to do
I
that.
know, and I shouldn't have.
Right, can we
Okay,
move
well,
on?
we'll hire someone specifically for that job. Okay, so that was it for other matters?
I
Anyone
think
else
so.
have another
Town
matter?
board comments, I think
Town board
everything.
comments,
I think we're
anyone?
all
We've had
done.
enough comments?
Yeah.
I do have something.
It's
Oh,
nice,
okay,
it's not-
Brad has
oh,
something.
God.
So it's been brought to my attention from some community members. On Perry's Corners Road for almost a month, they have had intermittent internet service. They've been through technicians coming to the street, the houses. They've been through a few levels trying to resolve this, and the consensus is from the 9 families that I think are involved right now is that it's in the lines. So it's not fixed. It's not, there, for whatever the reason it's not fixed has been going on. I contacted our New York State Assemblyman, A.J. Beefin. The matter is going to a complaint to the FCC, and we're hoping to get some results for that. Question, Ian, we have a contract with Optimum, I believe?
Altice.
Altice?
Altice, right.
All right, and that's for cell phone service or what?
No, that's your franchise agreement, which basically is an agreement by which you authorize the cable company to occupy space on your right-of-way along the pole
So there it
lines.
is.
So it allows them to run the service to the town.
So the question is, who's responsible for the repair or maintenance of the line?
These people should be contacting Altice about it.
Okay.
I would have to go back to the franchise agreement because this was kind of a big issue. So our franchise renewal agreement occurred just after COVID, and it was a pretty sensitive time, I think, for the town and the world at that point, that we needed to have proper service, and there was a lot of areas within the town that were not being serviced. So there was a real push to extend service. And I recall in those negotiations that Altice had made a pretty strong commitment to the town to address these issues. So I would encourage all of those people to call Altice on that, and if they can't get any response, then the town, if necessary, can reach out as well.
Yeah, because I've heard a similar complaint. I just actually got today, I think, or maybe yesterday afternoon, a complaint that was very similar to that, about service dropping off. And it is kind of mortifying because, these are big companies and they do promise that, and people have an incredibly hard time reaching them. So I'm not sure quite what the solution is, but it would be great if we could get
Well, this
some
is,
attention.
thank you, Ian, because that is a direction that we don't know. So.
Well, that's good to hear. Okay.
There was also somebody approached me about overhanging trees on Simpatch Road. I don't know if that came up again, but apparently that appears to be an issue with them.
Okay.
Somebody came to me today.
Didn't you bring that
I brought that up last week.
Yeah, you brought that up a couple weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the problem with that is,
yes.
it's Altice lines. County can't touch them, town can't touch them.
Great. Okay, well, we have to have a fun session with Altice. Is George here, Ian?
He is. So,
okay.
What I'll do is I'll make a motion to go into executive session on two matters. The first being a matter leading to employment of a particular person or corporation, and that will be with the entire town board. Thereafter, Leo, you'll be excused, and we'll have a further executive session with regards to the Kent Hollow litigation.
I would stay if I could.
Do you need a second?
I'm going to go home myself.
No, he's not making it. Who's making it?
Oh, okay.
He's helping. Is that you?
I'll make that motion.
Thank
There
you,
we go.
Nicole.
I'm going to go home myself.
Second?
Second. Oh.
Third.
Supervisor Blackman.
Yes.
Council members Winters.
Yes.
Redlard.
Yes.
Camp and Ahern.
Yes.
Okay, and it's
Can I
9:43.
get up and get water?